Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have to look back on the thing. I don't remember. I think it was extending the closing date and more the email says it doesn't.
Kathy, would you do a roll call?
Councilmember Zerfing?
Here.
Councilmember Benson?
Here.
Councilmember Cramlett?
Here.
Councilmember Masters?
Yes.
Councilmember Pruitt?
Here.
Councilmember Haight?
Here.
Mayor Fisher?
Here. Amendments to the agenda tonight. I will be moving the Eva Lane, the discussion regarding Eva Lane to, it'll be item D under consent of agenda. So it'll be 7D. Okay?
No.
Pardon me?
It'll be 8D, unfinished business, because consent agenda means we just approve whatever,
Oh, so I put it in the wrong place?
yeah.
All right. So it'll be 8. Be the first one under unfinished business, okay?
The first one?
Yeah,
Or the last one?
first.
Okay. So 8A.
Okay. With that, public hearing, for anybody who would like to,
No, that's,
no, there is none tonight. Okay. Presentations, there's no presentations tonight. Comments by the general public on any item of interest? Oh, you have a
presentation.
I'm sorry.
Well, when I think presentation, I think, yes, I brought, and that's not what you call it anymore, sorry.
That's fine. Please do your presentation, I'm sorry.
It'll only take me about 35 minutes, is that okay?
Whatever you want to do.
Okay, so turn everything off, the lights are out, everyone's gone.
there you go.
I just wanted to introduce myself to the new council. Hey, you know what? I know all of you. Okay, so never mind, I don't need to do that. But I just wanted to touch base with you for just a few minutes. Parks and Rec is going along just fine. You probably hear us downstairs some Tuesdays and Thursday nights if you happen to be in the building. Right now, we're having kids K through 12th grade, and we have 14 to 28. Never quite know how many are going to show up. Right now, a few, the numbers are a little fewer because some kids are playing basketball, but some of them drop in after the game. So, and we're getting along pretty well with, that is a wide spread, age spread of kids, but they seem to get along really well. And the little kids get out on the basketball court sometimes, and the big ones are out there. They got this serious game going, and here comes a 6-year-old walking through just to go over to the restroom or somewhere. They just kind of watch out for them, and it really, I'm surprised at how well it's working having that span of age, because that is a little tricky sometimes. But it's going really well. Pam and I keep an eye on them as best we can, and we just, hope the program continues on like it's been doing. And everything seems to be coming along okay. The Halloween went well, and the Santa picture party went well, and you all have received, the new members probably have not, but the the previous council members, I'll get back to my presentation. The previous council members probably received my reports as those events have happened. I try to be sure and send those in to you. So we're looking forward to Easter, and that's coming up late in April. We'll be planning the Easter egg hunt again. So we're just kind of moving along, and then of course Sternwheeler Days will be coming up, and we'll do something for Sternwheeler Days. So we're just doing fine, and I just wanted to come in and let you know I'm still here, still alive and kicking. Anyone have any questions for Parks and Rec?
How many kids are there tonight? It looks like they're
Well, these are kids for basketball practice, and I think they're from Stevenson, some of them are, so. Yeah. Yeah, that's not us tonight. Anybody, any questions? Wow, you're easy crowd. Okay. How about a raise? Oh, well, I was doing good till then. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you.
That's good.
Is there any other presentations? Seeing none, we'll go to comments by the general public on any item of interest that is not going to be discussed on the agenda. Committee reports or government officials? Yes.
Hi, I'm Martha Lamont
Hi, Mark.
from the infamous food bank, Cascade Lots.
All right.
Our merger with Fish is going smoothly. They're a great organization, and they are promising to make us a stronger group who will be committed to having food for everyone. We're going to start having more produce, fresh. When we get a refrigerator, which will be soon, some eggs and milk on a Tuesday for our new Tuesday distribution. I think most people know is the third Tuesday of the month. We are looking for a backup driver. Steve Morris is very busy, and he's been doing a great job, filling in after Daryl left. But we're going to be looking for a backup driver for him to, on the second Thursday of the month, to go to the Dalles and pick up for the distribution. Kate Stewart is doing a great job of organization. She's worked very, very hard on this and should be strongly commended for that. If you would like to volunteer about once a month, it would be for about a 2-hour period. We do have a meeting tomorrow night for training. We have about 15 people coming so far, but anyone's invited that would like to be a volunteer at the, is it the third courthouse? Is that what it is?
Courthouse 3.
Courthouse 3. Between 5 and 7 p.m. We'll have some dinner there. And also I want to talk about the Alan Feinstein Challenge, which I kind of got me going on this last year, which is between March and April. He's a philanthropist on the East Coast, and he gives away $1 million every year. He knows who we are. We get around between $200 and $300 from him. If we raise more than we did last year, we'll get more. But the point is to make us successful. We do in every community involved in the United States. We were 12th last year in the state. That's very good for a small group. We raised over $8,000. Anything we can raise this year will look very, very good because Fish has not been involved in this yet, and they don't really know about it, but they understand that that's what we're going to do this year. It starts the 1st of March, so any contributions I look forward to receiving. And we have boxes around town. We're collecting quite a bit on that, especially from people passing through town. So we're very motivated to get contributions from people that are coming through the community, not just looking upon ourselves to do that. So that's it, and yay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else from the public like to speak? Sandra?
Our last city administrator brought up an issue about HBO and how it wasn't paying for itself anymore. And our cable TV is running in the negative. And it was mentioned that it wasn't fair for regular subscribers to subsidize cable HBO subscribers. And I wanted to bring to the council's attention, I don't know if all of you, I think most of you have been around long enough to remember where it used to be once a year they would have a subscribers drive for HBO. And they would first of all offer a teaser week for everybody. And it was both for Disney and HBO at the time. And since then, HBO is a part of our cable network, but HBO is still an elective. But since the subscribers of HBO are down, I really believe that if you offered free hookups to HBO subscribers, you could get quite a few subscribers. I was considering hooking back up to HBO, and I called up today, and it's $35 to have HBO added to your itinerary. And I know that in the past years, we've had our electric workers and the people that service our cable TV were really busy with South Bank and other large projects. But now that we don't have those projects going on, there should be plenty of labor around. And to offer this for people who wanted to subscribe to HBO, I think would be a way to maybe make this fund pay for itself again. So I just wanted to remind you of what used to be done in order to keep those enrollments up and suggest that as a possible way to do it in the future. Because frankly, it's not worth it to, I'm not going to pay $35 just to have HBO added. Although I certainly would add HBO if it were elected to me as it was in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment from the public? Seeing none, we will go to consent of agenda. Item A, approval of the minutes of January 14th, special council meeting. Item B, ratification of the minutes of January 28th, 2011, council meeting. C, ratification of bills in the amount of $177,798.58.
56 cents.
56 cents.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
The motion has been made by Tiffany Pruitt and seconded by Eva. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. First item under unfinished business will be discussion on the Eva Lane, regarding Eva Lane. At this time, would anybody from the public like to comment? Did you want to comment on the Eva Lane? I'm asking the public.
Yes, I'm on the
Okay.
agenda, if I understand this correctly.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Good evening, my name is Cindy Lee Baseman. I've lived here in this beautiful town of Cascade Locks for 22 years. I want to welcome the new council. And especially, I just want to thank you for all your patience. I have been attending this issue regarding Eva Lane, the public road, for the last 5 months. And I wanted to applaud Kevin Benson for bringing it to my attention that you're supposed to get it on the agenda. Well, I'm kind of new to this, and I did not know that. So, as I say, I've been coming time in and time out, and I'm sure you might be getting tired of seeing me. But getting on to the agenda as to why I'm here, if I'm understanding this correctly, is this a time where, Mayor, that they can ask me questions about Eva Lane?
Yes, the council can ask you questions.
Okay. Well, before that, my goal, since I believe I passed out to Tiffany Pruitt and the mayor, and correct me if I'm wrong, the division plat map,
Yeah, I think we've all,
and then also, pardon me, I'm
I
sorry.
think we've all gotten it.
Okay, and also Sue Ryan had done an extensive amount of time on this, under Bernard. And now, was that given to you too? That's my understanding. All the material that she had found out? Okay. I have been working quite extensively with Don Wiley, who is the Hood River County engineer, along with Randy Johnson, the county surveyor, Hood River County surveyor. And I guess I felt a little embarrassed because he was asking me what's taking the city so long since it's already been recorded as a public road, as to why the city isn't understanding or acknowledging this. And that's primarily, I'm not understanding it. And that's my question when it's already a public road based on the partition plat map. Yes.
Council President, go ahead.
Well, we have had some discussion on that particular thing already, right? That even though it's deeded as a public property, that part of town wasn't part of the city when that was public property. When it was deeded a public road, that wasn't part of Cascade Locks.
Well, it was
Cascade
mine.
Locks, what's it called?
Annex.
Annex.
That part of town. So the public roads that didn't meet our standards for roads, they remained public, but we didn't accept them until they were brought up to the standards that are required for public roads. It's just like when a new subdivision goes in. It gets all platted out and the roads get put in, but until they meet our standards, they're not our roads. They may be platted as public property and so on and so forth, but they're not a road that we're responsible for.
Well, you don't have maintenance, if I'm understanding this.
That's
Okay,
exactly
I
it.
get that, but up to standards within what Don Wiley was telling me, it has to be a certain paved, which it's not, and it has to have sewers and all that, and sidewalks.
The city has to agree to accept it, pretty much. They have to agree to take that property into their maintenance.
Well, okay, maybe you could help me out here, but the last 22 years, I would like to get the council to continue plowing it, or to
Okay.
get something in
But-
writing.
Well, I was just talking to the question about why it hadn't been,
A public,
or why it wasn't a Cascade Locks maintained public.
right, I understand that.
Okay.
But it's within the city, and it still is under the county.
But you understand the distinction, though?
I understand the distinction in the sense of maintenance factor.
And
Maintain,
plowing.
filling.
Okay, and plowing is maintenance.
Well, but that's my question, since something has been done for the last 22 years.
Okay, well, but. we're
And
just
so
talking-
what, that's another thing that I've gone
I'm
through.
sorry, Cindy, but I'm just trying to keep to where we're talking about one specific thing, though. And you were talking about Mr. Wiley
Right,
and
right, I
and his
understand
comment,
that.
his comment that he didn't understand why it hadn't been.
Oh, okay.
That's all I'm talking about, is that specific thing.
Okay.
And the reason why is the chronology of that being annexed, that road not meeting the city standards for us to take it over, and that's the way it's.
But I
written.
understand this, Kevin, but for the last 21 years, you had already known that. So why are you all of a sudden, after 22 years of plowing it, are you stopping plowing it? I don't get it.
I never said we were stopping plowing.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I apologize. I guess I'm getting a little, okay, I understand what I heard what you're saying in that sense about the maintenance. But still, the county recognizes it as a public road. The
And
city-
we recognize it as a public road
Okay.
as well,
So could we get that in writing, and could I get that in writing?
that it's a public road.
Mhm.
I think you have, the deed right there says that it's public property.
That's correct, but nothing
I'm
from the
sure.
city in writing says it's a public road.
We don't control deeds and stuff, that's all controlled by the county, right? We don't control,
Okay,
we don't
okay, I understand that.
we don't get to say what is what.
Okay.
We do get to say, though, what
Okay, I
we've
understand.
agreed to maintain.
Okay, so,
So if the road would have to be brought up to city standards for us to say, we're gonna take that over and we're gonna start maintaining that road. Now, don't jump ahead of me, because we do
No.
have a written agreement with you about the plowing thing.
okay,
But those are the reasons why it is the way it is right now.
okay, then I
It
understand.
may be a public road, but we're not responsible for maintaining all
Okay.
public roads.
I'm good with that, and I appreciate your patience, but what about the fact that somebody designated it due to the sign, black and white lettering stating it's a private road? It's not private.
I don't know if that's really germane to the discussion. I
Can
guess.
you
put in the
change
sign.
it, at least?
I think it's white because they put that there because it's not a road the city maintains. That's probably why
I
it's
was told,
different than the
oh,
rest
okay,
of
I
them.
understand, but I was told that it's private. I was told not only by, that it was private.
Can I influx a little bit? So
Sure,
they only have two color signs.
that's
okay?
correct.
So it's either a public, either it's a city road or it's a private road. So because there's only two color signs, there's not an ordinance breaking out to say that it's a public road that isn't a private road. So you kind of fall in between the cracks as far as the sign goes. But let me ask the point.
Okay.
What is your final, what are you trying to end up with tonight? Are you trying to end up with the fact that the city is going to plow your road?
That's
when it
true,
snows?
all the way down, not just halfway. Yes, that's correct.
Now,
Mhm.
the city had an agreement to plow your road, my understanding, down past your driveway and then out, okay? And my understanding is that that agreement is still, that the council is willing to keep that agreement, but not go all the way down to the end because it's a safety issue and a maintenance issue, to go all the way down to the end because Sheldon's had problems in the past. He went down the end, he turned around, got caught up in a barbed wire fence, tore his tire up, then he was down, and then he wasn't plowing. So my understanding, and the council can agree with this at the end, that the agreement still stands because you had an agreement to allow the city to let stormwater go onto your property. The city's still willing to plow your road. Sheldon will back down the driveway, get past your driveway, and then he'll plow from there out.
Well, George, if I might interject something, Mayor, excuse me, Mayor. I, at that time, lived at the very end where Susan Place and Gary Mooncoff live. And that with Richard McCulley was an agreement all the way down, not just halfway, all the way down. That was the agreement that has been in existence for 22 years, the plowing of all the way down to the end, because for safety, he can turn around safely, instead of just going halfway down and backing up.
All I know is what I've been told from this point, and I've been told that the last few years, they've been plowing just past your driveway and out. Is that not what they've been doing for the last few years?
2 years ago, they plowed all the way down. They went all the way down like they have been. We didn't really have any snow, I don't think, last year to speak of.
So, anyway,
So,
my understanding, talking to Sheldon, is that they're still willing to go past your driveway and then plow your driveway out. But it's not a good turnaround, it's not a good situation
to
for
go
them
all
to
the
do.
way down,
Mhm.
like they have been for, well,
I'm
okay,
just, go ahead, Kevin.
I don't understand why, because for safety, that would present even more. For fire, couldn't get down there, or ambulance on the
Okay.
public road.
Go ahead,
I
Kevin.
don't get it.
Just as a possible solution. Could the residents of Eva Lane take on the responsibility for providing a safe turnaround area for the snowplow? And in exchange for that, we will plow the whole thing. I think it's kind of, if she did live at the very end, and when that agreement was signed, then I think the agreement was that we were gonna plow the whole thing. If it is a hazard to our equipment, I can understand that too. I think both sides should be able to work together. Do you think that's a possibility?
Oh, definitely. I mean,
Where we could work with Sheldon and come up with an area for him to be able to turn around safely, that's well marked, where he's not gonna go off into the ditch and get
sure.
stuck.
Oh, that's great.
Because the other side of it, and I'm not saying, this is just a suggestion that they still have, and we still have to talk about, but it seems like it would be a reasonable solution all the way around.
Mhm.
If we take care of the hazard, the extra 75 feet,
I don't think it's the issue of the 75 feet, it's more just
The-
the issue of
Okay.
having a safe place to turn around without going into somebody's fence or going off the property, off the road
I
into
understand,
somebody's property.
and I understand,
And
and
so
I know that the.
I think if that
get-
situation could
Sure.
probably be worked out, if you can resolve something with the rest of the owners and then get back with us.
And
I
would
think
this need to be in writing then? Oh,
I don't know.
Go ahead, Don.
The turnaround area, would this be by Gary's place?
That's correct. There's a huge, yes.
So it wouldn't take much, run the backhoe down there in an hour, probably clean it up. I don't.
and maybe throw up some little reflective metal flags or something, just to mark the edge, yeah.
That'd be great. So should,
Yes, Tom?
Yeah, and that's what, you got a public road out there, and that's what part, and nobody seems, as when we go to these meetings, nobody seems to wants to claim this thing. I guarantee if there was some type of value to this road, the county would be all over it, the city would be all over it, but they don't see any perceived value in it. Plus, it is only 20 feet wide instead of what it needs to be considered a city road. But it does, it is stretched, goes all the way down, and it's just a straight line, and it's public. It is a public area. it feeds to at least six homes down there, six residents along it. And it seems to me, we should, you know, again, getting with those guys, we should be able to head down there and figure something out on the entire length of that road that we've been doing for, and that's all they're asking. It seems all they're asking is when you get enough snow there, so they're, you know, they're down there, just be able to push down there and open up those six residents only on, you know, your own plow on that public road. I think we should be able to hang out, but anyway, I think we should sort of have a discussion.
I like the idea of working out a way that we can plow that road. My question is, would we then offer the same thing to the residents of Mountain View?
If they have.
If they were willing to provide a turnaround, would we start plowing their road too? And I seem to recall that there were other issues about plowing a gravel road versus plowing a paved road, and I don't know the details of that, but I think it would make sense for us to check with Sheldon and the people that are actually doing the plowing, just to make sure that they're comfortable with plowing that road. So there's a couple things there. I mean, I feel like before we make a decision tonight, we ought to have that input and that discussion, assuming it's not going to snow the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But then the other thing is, if we're making this deal with residents of Eagle Lane, are we also going to offer it to other residents of other roads?
Well, the thing I would say, Lance, is there's been an agreement, because with Eva Lane, there has not been any sort of agreement ever made with Mountain View. And that's the reason why this whole issue is in front of the board right now. Okay, if there was an agreement with Mountain View, then we'd be in that same scenario. You see what I'm saying? But the scenario is not alike.
Well, Mountain View is truly a private road, though. It truly is a private, it's not a public road. This is a deeded public road. Mountain View is a private road.
And that's why I'm asking the question, because, you know, if we talk about, well, there's, you know, for safety's sake, there's fires, ambulances, and there's residents that live there, and we'd like to have it plowed for their safety, you know, that might also be true in some other cases around the city. I understand there's some circumstances specific to Eva Lane, but I'm just wondering, would we be willing to have some sort of a deal and agreement with people who live on those other lanes? So, and that's the question I'd like answered. I mean, if we're going to do this for one road, what are specifically the reasons why we would or would not do it for another road that's not up to city standards?
Kevin?
Well, just for the discussion of it, we didn't start this agreement. We inherited it from a previous public works person. So, and the city's getting value, something that they valued at the time anyway, a place for the runoff to go on her property. So we're getting something in exchange for
The service.
the service that we're providing. Certainly, we actually have talked during the snowplow emergency plan thing. If people want to exchange money or something else of value for us plowing private roads, we would consider it. So I think we've already established that. We are getting something of value from Eva Lane though, someplace for the runoff to go. Where it's broken down is with several different public works superintendents going through the position, the disagreement is over how far we're going to plow it. And I think that's really all that we're really talking about here. I don't think we're setting any precedent. I mean, that's my opinion.
I guess we could stop doing it. She could say, well, put your water someplace else.
Sure.
That wouldn't be a win-win for either the city or the
So,
residents, so
have we answered your question for now, Cindy?
Yes, that if I understood everyone, and thank you again for your patience, that providing that the residents, we can come up with a viable solution such as what Don was saying, the turnaround there, and just put markers, reflective markers, so Sheldon won't have any problem, and make sure that there's not any barbed wire for infringing upon the driver, Sheldon.
Yes.
That it will be continued to be plowed all the way down, and I just, I want to thank you. And this is all in writing, and I don't have to come back here, I hope, again and discuss that issue. So, and as far as the color sign, we'll just leave it, I guess, black and white. The drivers just think, when the FedEx, I guess they thought it was a private road, so possibly if we could have the funding maybe to change it back to the to the public road, that'd be great, but anyway,
Okay,
is that everything?
yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So are we gonna take any action, or are we gonna give Sheldon direction to research a possible solution for the turnaround part of it and come back and report to us, or?
Could I comment on
Sandra?
this issue? Could I comment?
Yes, you may comment now.
Thank you. Sandra Kelly, Cascade Locks. And I was kind of just wondering, is the only snowplow equipment we have that great big snowplow? Aren't there other situations in town where we need smaller equipment like a Kubota or a truck with a blade? It seems like there are probably other situations where smaller equipment is needed in order to do a good plow job. And why can't that equipment be used? Apparently there wasn't any problem for 22 years. I've been watching this poor woman come here for 5 months, because it was discontinued, the plowing, and one public works director makes a deal to plow it all the way to the end, and the other one says it's not safe to go there. And I guess my question is isn't there any downsized equipment available?
To my knowledge, they have a backhoe.
Bobcat too.
They have a Bobcat as well, but I think normally what they plow with is the little dump truck with a snow plow on the front of it, and that's what they normally use. So, you know how general practices get to be. I mean, I know they use the backhoe and that. I haven't seen them ever use the Bobcat for out plowing because it's so slow. It doesn't do very much. So, yes, Eva.
Well, I guess my only thing on there would be, question to Andy is that if we change the way we wrote it, or we change something, or does it make it a new agreement? Or is it just kind of continuation, just a clear up of the old one? Does that make sense? That would be my, are we opening it to, like what we're talking about with, Mountain View and that kind of thing? Is it changing?
Well, potentially. My first question is, my understanding was that there is no written agreement. Am I wrong about that? I am wrong? There is a written agreement?
There is a written
I've not
agreement.
seen it.
It's something that was typed up with no signatures or dates. There is something in writing. Not dated, not signed, not
Okay.
recorded.
Well, I'll be lawyerly for a moment here. If it's not dated, not signed, to me, it's not an agreement. Maybe a matter of precedent for you, but technically, it's probably not a binding agreement. So, to your question, do we need to revise the agreement? Again, to me, there is no binding agreement now. So if you want to have a written agreement, yes, we can prepare one.
There's a couple of issues, though, because if we decide that there is no agreement, then what are we going to do with our stormwater, for one, that's encroaching on her property? And second of all, if we have an established practice for 22 years that kind of says that agreement does exist, even though it never got signed or recorded, or we can't find a copy that's signed or recorded, are we really establishing a new precedent by doing what we've done before, and what we have evidence that at least there was some discussion about doing?
Well, if you write a new agreement, or even sign the old one, then you would have something that you're legally bound to. Again, right now, I don't think you have anything legally binding you. You can certainly make the deal that you're talking about making. I don't have a problem with that. But I wanted to make the record straight about whether or not there is an agreement now. And then that begs the question of whether or not you want to write down a new agreement or simply continue to do what you're doing.
And we could acknowledge that just by signing that piece of paper that we have right now.
Could.
Okay.
And we wouldn't be setting a precedent that...
Oh, setting a precedent. The precedent issue, I think, has to do with roads that are in a similar situation. For example, if you have other public roads, not not private roads, but other public roads in town, are you plowing those? I don't know. Do we have any other public roads in town that we've not accepted as city streets?
Yes,
I don't know the answer to that.
yeah, Mountain View, right?
As I understand, that's
That's
a
a private
private
road.
road.
Not-
Private, okay.
That's
Okay.
different.
What about Winsong, those roads? Are those public roads that haven't been accepted? They've been
It's because they
paid.
weren't up to standard.
If it creates a
Right.
precedent, it only creates a precedent, I would think, to
Okay.
other public roads in the city which you've not accepted as city streets.
So,
Eva?
So the question would be like on the Winsong thing, so if she goes and does what we talked about and makes the road, they get together and they make it up to, I guess it's not gonna be too standard though.
No.
right, no.
Okay.
Yeah, Winsong doesn't count because it's not up to standard, and the manholes stick out, and so that is very dangerous for the equipment, so, and nobody lives there yet.
Well, they live there, but we haven't acted on the bond to have it paved yet. There is a bond to pave it.
Now, as far as setting a precedence, they're gonna have to meet all the same criteria. They're gonna have to be giving the city back something in return, like what Kevin was saying. I mean, we're being granted the use to allow the stormwater. So one of the other roads to be exactly the same would have to have the same criteria or something that's given back value to the city, correct?
Okay, and I think you're probably right, that as long as you have the understanding that you're getting something in consideration for the plowing, that probably creates a difference
Okay.
between that and other public roads.
All right. So, Lance?
I like the idea of talking with Sheldon about it before we're taking action tonight,
Okay.
just so that we understand what the potential issues are. And not that I want to stop the plowing of this, but just that the people that are actually running the snowplow, I think we should hear from them on what their concerns are, why they, if it's just a matter of a barbed wire fence, then it sounds like the ideas that have been thrown out tonight would solve it. If there's other issues, we should probably hear those first.
It's still a workshop item, right? I mean.
Yeah.
No, it's an unfinished business item.
Well, I moved it on the agenda up there. It's actually a workshop item.
So we can't take action on it tonight anyways, it's just a discussion.
So is
Oh,
it
you
okay
moved it
that
into
we
unfinished
contact
business.
Sheldon, or can I talk to him?
We'll contact Sheldon,
Okay, and so.
and then we'll have Sheldon get in touch with you. Okay? So.
So who's going to contact Sheldon? You, George?
I will. Okay, with that being done, we will go on to appointments of various committees. And I would like to announce tonight that on the Budget Committee, I am going to appoint Sandra Kelly. On the Budget Committee, I'm going to appoint Darlene Solinger. And then, again, on the Budget Committee, I'm going to appoint Laura Fisher. The next committee that will be the City Services Committee will be Corey Frank, will be on that committee. Park and Recreations, Rachel Breckenheisen, and then Shane Corbett.
You said you weren't going to.
Pardon me?
You said you weren't going to, because he's already on.
Oh, that's right, I apologize.
And you might want to.
All right, and I wanted to explain to people, part of the reason how I appoint people is, my first thing is that, and this is my personal feeling, that if they're a person who is already on a council or already on a committee, I feel that they should only serve on one committee. The first reason is I feel that if you are on one committee, that you will divulge your full energy towards working towards that committee. Okay, and then my second reasoning why I do that is it allows for more community involvement, to have more people from the community involved in different committees. So I always, just so you understand, I always only want to have one person. If you're already on a committee, I really don't want you to be on another one, okay? So, and that's how I will appoint people in that aspect. And so with that tonight, that'll be it. So it'll just be Rachel Breckenheisen will be on the Parks and Rec. And then there's been a couple other people who have sent emails that I've gotten from other people in the community. If you're really interested, we still have openings in the city services, Park and Rec, and also on the Charter Review Committee. You need to send a letter to City Hall so that it comes to the city, so that it's a matter of record. Okay? So with that being said, that's all my people that are going to be on committees.
Do we need to make a motion on that?
I don't think so.
So it's usually under consent agenda.
You can have consensus at a council, right?
Yeah, you need council approval, I think you.
Yeah, because it's usually on the consent agenda.
Okay. So call for a consensus vote?
Just a motion to approve all those appointments would be good.
Motion to approve those who the mayor appointed.
Second.
It's been moved by Tiffany and seconded by Don to approve those people to those committees. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimous, or ununanimously?
Unanimously.
Ununanimous, not, anyway.
Do those opposing want to give a reason why?
Lance?
I will give my reason why. When we're appointing people to a budget committee, I believe that that's sending a message, in this case, to the city staff. There's already some turbulence in the city staff because there's no city administrator. And you've chosen to appoint people, in a few cases at least, that have been critical of the city staff for a number of years. And that concerns me, when there were other options.
Thank you, Lance. Eva?
Mine is just that I don't know really what all experience these people have, and whether the people that were selected have better experience than others that are here, and I'd like to see a broader spectrum of people.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Next on unfinished business, the review of the paid on-call paramedic position. At this time, would anyone in the public like to comment? Sandra?
And we need to stipulate that this is specifically for the paid on-call position, nothing about the fire department or the fire chief.
My feeling about this is that every proposal, including this one, that's brought before City Council is also accompanied with a lot of vindictiveness, I believe, forcefulness. There have been citizens that have been villainized for logical questions in this city, and I really think it needs to end. This has been going on since the fire district. And even this issue, the people come out in force to defend the fire chief instead of address the issues involved. And as I see the issues, there was a proposal made, and I assume that the proposals that are made is not just to say anything, they're earnest, and this is the way they believe it's going to go. They were supposed to be brought back in 3 months. Instead, it was brought back on the 7th month. It was not complete information. and another 2 weeks was allotted, and then from what I understand, it's not complete information again. How many times? It's not enough just to sell an item on a grant application to make it sound good, on a proposal to make it sound good. There has to be some follow-through, and the follow-through have to be able to be verified with facts. We're not in a bottomless pit. And in this case, I really believe you should draw the line and say no. We've had money taken from every single one of our funds until they're in really poor shape, including our water fund. It was a priority in the year 2000 to make our water system strong, and we've put that on the back burner. And all the money, essentially, all the spare money and money from other departments have been put into this one department. And when the money's gone, you need to quit spending. And as far as I'm concerned, that's kind of the end of the picture. When the money's gone, there's nothing else we can do. The money's gone, you've got to take action. I also understand that this fund has been overspent without the council's approval. So basically, say anything that you want and don't feel necessary to follow through to show that it's as you said it was intended to be. It's a whole new spin each time this happens, and it's happened again and again and again and again, and we get the same people again and again and again and again villainizing a certain segment of the population that just wants a touch of reality. I don't want to sacrifice my water system for the fire department. Thank you.
Cascade Locks. There's a question, I know there's some research that was done, but as vice chair of the budget committee, former vice chair, I brokered with Councilmember Pruitt and budget committee member Guida Haight when there was discussions about the the part-time position. And Tiffany and I talked and trying to come up with quarterly reports and a 6-month review as the broker of the deal is what we recommended to council. So we talked about at budget committee.
It was it was quarterly reports and a limit of $5,000 and.
6 month or a 6-month review, right?
No, it was quarterly reports.
Did that get placed in the resolution or in a council's approval for that?
It was brought up at the adoption of the budget process because those minutes haven't been reviewed. Those minutes haven't been approved. That was the last meeting of the budget season, and so therefore those minutes never got approved. They won't get approved until we start the budget process again on the new year. So I reiterated that was part of it. And, I mean, it's clearly in those budget minutes.
But that never got reviewed, that never got put into the resolution.
It was a stipulation of the budget.
The stipulation of the budget, but there was no order from council, action from council on that.
It was, I guess, no, there probably wasn't an order, but it was re-stipulated, like I said, when we approved it, that was part of that approval of that fund.
But I'm just making clear that it was never adopted by council.
It was adopted when it was adopted with the budget.
Okay.
I'm
just asking that so there's clarity. So if you're holding an employee accountable for something, did that employee know about that? And were they made aware? That's the question.
I wouldn't know.
That's the only question I have.
Kevin?
The adoption of the budget is an action by the council.
Right.
We've heard that several times.
Time out, I broke my chair.
Again? George has gone through chairs, people.
Fortunately, he knows how to fix it.
Yeah, I gotta fix it. All right, we're back, sorry. Would anybody else from public like to speak?
I just have a few questions, because Sandra's alluded that she knows that the new information is incomplete.
Hold on, point of order.
Oh, what?
All comments from the podium were directed to the council.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
I knew it, yes.
that's fine.
I'm Sarah Knight, I live in Cascade Locks. I have a couple of questions. It was, Sandra Kelly brought up that she knows that the new information is not complete. Is that information privy to all of us to review before council?
It's online. It should be posted online.
Okay, I'm just, so, this is my question. It seems like you could take the direction that you have direction to either get rid of the part-time paramedic position or to retain it, and you'll gather information either way. I just want to ask you, who's going to pay the cost if we get rid of that part-time paramedic position? People that need to be responded to will still have to be responded to. So if it's Jeff, are we going to pay him overtime or compensation time to do it? And if he's not allowed to do that, then Stevenson or neighboring communities will respond to our emergencies. So we might not be paying directly for them, but somebody will be. So I just want you to consider that or explain to me how you come to the reasoning that this is a fiscally sound and prudent thing to do. Especially when we're inviting more, this summer we're going to have more and more events than we've ever had before. And I'd like to be able to feel comfortable that our guests will be taken care of when they crash their mountain bike or wreck on the freeway or have a heart attack. So I really, really would like people to consider ways to try to save this program instead of finding ways to justify getting rid of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Might as well. Martha Lamont, Cascade Lots. There were two women that are going to be here tonight to speak about this. Longtime residents, friends of mine. They're both ill for different reasons. They can't be here. They support the program strongly. They've had personal issues. And me being a senior, I want all the help I can get. Sorry. I think we have a good fire situation here, and I think we need to keep it, no matter what we have to do to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
My name is Randy Mislook. I'm a citizen of Cascade Lots, and I'd like to say from the get-go, this has been a grand experiment that has never worked properly from day one. And the reason why is because we are a small, poor community that can't afford these types of protection. Now, the protection that people, that you just heard about a couple of minutes ago, saying we want more coverage, paramedics, these are the types of things that you can expect from communities that have a large tax base that can afford these types of programs. We do not. We have 1,000 men, women, and children in this town, most of whom are not doing that well. And that type of tax base cannot support this type of system. It's unfortunate. For people who want the types of services that they enjoy up in Hood River, Troutdale, Washougal. You're talking Skamania County. They have a district there supported by many thousands of taxpayers. Many thousands of taxpayers in Washougal, Troutdale, that can afford these types of things, but we cannot. And I think it behooves the citizens who live in this town, when you came here, you had to know that you were 20 miles away from the nearest hospital. You had to know that you're 20, 30, 35 miles, 40 miles away from the next largest hospital that's specialized. It's a type of system that they want, we can't afford. And we can afford what we had before, a general administrator administrating over a fire department, getting the grant monies, having a volunteer fire chief with a full volunteer staff. We could afford that for years. And personally speaking, right now, the way things are, I don't feel any safer than when I lived here in the mid-90s with volunteer fire chief O'Neill, volunteer fire chief Renal. They dealt with a fire department with with the resources that they had in hand. It may not have been the best, it may not have been the best equipment, but it still functioned, and it functioned within budget. Without being able to function within budget, you're not going to have any system at all. You have to be within budget. From what I understand, the last 6 years, we haven't been within budget at all. So that's all I have to say. Any questions? Thank you.
Any further comment from the public? Seeing none, we'll go to council discussion. Don?
I have a couple comments, and I'm only commenting on the information that has been available to me. And I'd like to have 24-hour a day, 365 days a year service. But if someone has some suggestions how we can pay for it, I would be pleased to hear it. But I've looked at everything. I've checked with other areas. One is in Moses Lake. They're a larger population. They tried to do the same thing. They invested $2.6 million. They lost $750,000 the first year. They put fees on it. Then they invested $73,500 a year from the general fund the first year. The next year they invested $252,800. And then they had to raise the fee. They couldn't afford to compete with the private ambulance services. They could not collect the money. And I believe it was 330 fire departments in the state of Washington. Only 28 made it work. And taking the figures that we have so far, it showed $14,848.36 projected revenue. That's out of $28,261.38 collectible income. That's based on 61% of the total billed amount received. According to a study of the U.S. cities, when they calculate, trying to figure out if it can pay, they recommended using 43% of the calculated income from bills submitted. And they used 6% of the total bills amount submitted just for collection fee. Okay, the last meeting, we showed a $23,000 shortage on our budget. And we were advised that it's been paid by income from ambulance service. Well, the way I understand, that $23,000 has to come off of the profit that we were expecting. So the way I figure it, we're already $8,153.64 in the negative on the income. I would love to say we could do this, but if we're going to do it, we're going to have to find some income. Right now, we're getting $20,000 from Multnomah County to service that area in the freeway. The city of Cascade Locks homeowners, 45% of their property taxes, which is $72,950, goes into the fire department to protect our homes in Cascade Locks. The Fire Medical Life paid in $1,350 last year. The rural suppression fees were $9,085.59. The various fees were $2,698.94. The rural fire contract for Dodson and Warrendale was $3,689.51. That's a total of income for $109,774. The only way we can do it is find some other way to pay for it. We have a got $450,000 debt. Right now, we have not paid interest, not even interest, let alone principal. Somehow, these people here have to figure out how to repay this loan. And the only way to get the service that everybody is saying we want is to man this every day, every hour. That's the only way we can do it. Having the 2 paramedics will take care of part of it, but we're not going to be able to cover 365 days a year like they do. Maybe we can get a paid outfit to come in here and somehow we can do it. But we cannot do it now. We can't even pay our debts. We're getting close to bankrupting this city. And if anybody wants to come up and sit at the city and sit down and look at what we owe, you can figure it out. That's all I've got. Eva?
I don't always only look at budgets on things, and I know that some people disagree with that, but I think there's a large part of people that will agree with that. Also, I think that it's the balance that you try to have. Thing is that Cascade Rocks sits in this weird little position. It's this little town that's kind of in the midst of all these kind of bigger places, okay? Now, with that, just because we're a little town doesn't mean that there aren't expectations that the big towns will expect, like that you get, you know, that you're still certified the same way, you're still at the same level as that way. And we're a community that is surrounded by advanced life support a ways out. Advanced life support being, you know, the really big stuff. Okay. So if you look at, we still sit here now, you look at also the dynamics of the city, and I mentioned this in the last meeting. You have a lot of people that travel out and are traveling back in to this little community. We're also a huge town, a town in the fact that we do a lot, we're trying to get more tourism coming in, okay? So we're trying to get people coming in and going out. So the reason I like this program, and specifically, the thing that draws me to this program is this. You're talking about, even if it's a program that can maintain, even if it just only maintains the money that we put into it, right? Then we have more paramedic coverage for not only our citizens that are right here in town, but for the tourists coming in that we're trying to attract, the tourists that are going out, so it's like a, you know, kiss hello, hug goodbye, and for our people. So I guess I'm going from that. So what I would say then is if we're saying that we don't think this is working at all, are there tweaks that we can do? Are there, you know, we're gonna have growing pains there, but if we still show that we're maintaining this program, because that's what we're talking about tonight. Because I understand what we're talking about, the whole budget is one thing, but if we're talking about just this tonight, so rather than either blindly say yes we want it or no, this is what I said, this is what I feel, and this is not only what I feel, what people are saying to me is like, give it a chance. People are very supportive of Fire EMS. It is really the heart of the community, and it's the heart too for tourism. So, you know, people want to know that when they come to a community that they're going to be taken care of too. So, just let me finish that up there, okay? So that's what I'm saying. If I would just like to see this, I'd like to see how it goes for a little bit longer before just canceling something out. That's what I have to say.
Tom?
Maybe I didn't make myself clear. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm saying this program, we're $8,153.64 negative right now. Today, we're negative. I'm all for doing it if we can finance it. Where are we going to get this money? Do we have the money? I wish we could do it. I hope we can do it. Tell me how we're going to pay for it. I don't know. I'll ask the rest of the council if they understood what I just said, because the way I figure it, maybe I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, our projected revenue from what I read on this piece of paper said after expenses was $14,846.36. We took $23,000 off the top expected revenue and paid a bill. So you can't figure that into that the way I figure a budget. Correct me if I'm wrong. Somehow, we've got to find a way, where's the money gonna come from? I'm 78 years old too, I'd like to know there's somebody waiting for me. But I don't see how we're gonna pay for it.
Lance?
I'll take a stab at correcting you, because I do think you're wrong, Don. What I'm looking at is, currently, the program has already taken in revenues of $9,442.21. The cost of the paid on call is $5,401.75. And then there's other various expenses which could be totaled up. Depreciation has never been factored in, but it has been in this spreadsheet. The total expenses, including some things that may or should or should not be in there, but they are listed in this particular spreadsheet. Total expenses is $13,014.02. So I don't see where you got the 8,000. But even if we weren't to take in another cent, even though we've done the work and we expect to be paid for it, even if we weren't to take anything else in, rough figures, that's $4,000 in the negative. Okay. Now, you could also assume that if we've answered calls and transported patients to hospitals and responded, that at least their insurance would kick in, and that we'd get partial payment for the services that we've rendered, and that's where you have a projected revenue, which again on this spreadsheet is $14,000, and this is after expenses, $14,846. So to me, that's in the positive.
Where did the $23,000 where did we get the $23,000 that we just put in the fire department's budget to keep it? Plus,
Well, I don't think there was $23,000 in the fire department's budget.
it was short $23,000 and it was just filled in. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I don't think we ever did.
That's what I was told.
Well, it was a ding on our audit report because it wasn't.
I was told that it's no longer.
Well, who told you that?
Jeff did, the last meeting. I asked him. They said that they took the money out of receivables from this program and put it in.
For this program?
Yes.
That's not how I understood it. Maybe we could ask Jeff. But that's not what I understood him to say at the last meeting.
So we're still short $23,000 in the budget then?
That's not the way I understand it. Maybe Mr. Pritchard would clarify it.
Kevin?
The fire department is running a negative balance, so.
23,000, is that correct?
A negative balance in their fund. I think Mary Ann could speak to that. She's the one that keeps the books.
Yes, it's a negative cash balance.
Okay.
At this time.
So
23,000?
I don't know if that figure is correct on, because I would have to look at mine. If you're talking about what the auditors said, that their beginning balance is coming over at a negative 36,000, yes, that is correct. I think it's 36, don't quote me on that, but it's 30-some thousand. I don't know where the 23 you're getting is. I don't know where that is. I'd have to look at my.
That's what I understood.
Kevin?
We were short.
Oh, sorry, Don. Sorry. Go ahead.
We were short money and it was paid out of the ambulance fund. And the only thing I can see on this is it had to come out of the revenue of the fire department's ambulance service.
Kevin?
And the reason that we're short is we continue to work off of projections and expectations, and this has been going on for several years, where we have this backlog of calls that hadn't been billed and hadn't been paid, and we added that to our beginning balance, and we've continued to do that, and this has snowballed into a great big chunk of money that we don't know whether we're going to get half of it, 30% of it, 100% of it. And not only that, we don't really have any real clue as to what we actually can expect in revenue for the entire department. But we're going to continue spending money because it appears that this one little program here is profitable when it stands all on its own. It doesn't pay utilities, it doesn't pay the chief's salary, it uses calls that part-time people went on, or on-call people went on that were accompanied by other paramedics that were already being paid. I mean, it's just a big mix of information that really isn't completely relevant to what exactly we're talking about. The most important thing is we have to get the fund, the fire department itself, back into the black. That should be our #1 priority. Regardless of what else happens, the #1 thing we need to do is get it back to where it's financially solvent. That should be what we're discussing tonight, I think. But since we are discussing this particular thing, simply spending more money on this area while we continue to ignore the fact that there's a negative balance isn't fulfilling our responsibility, in my estimation.
Lance?
Okay, I thought that the discussion that you announced, George, was that we were talking about a review of the paid on-call paramedic position, and now I'm starting to understand that we're actually reviewing the entire fire department budget. So that, I think those are two different things, but what's on the agenda is the review of the paid on-call paramedic position. The staff report that we have is specific to the paid on-call paramedic position, and again, I keep coming back to if we've got a program that works, that is paying for itself, assuming that half the people are going to pay the bills, the program does make money, then it does contribute to getting the fire department budget in the black. And speaking of getting the fire department budget in the black, if we're worried about a $23,000 outstanding bill, we already know that within the next couple of weeks we get the payment from Multnomah County of $20,000, and just in the last month, in January, I think we received close to $50,000 as a cash payment, which more than balances the entire fire department budget. So there's a couple of things going on here. Some people are talking about the paid on-call paramedic position, which, assuming you believe that, let's say, 50% of people will pay their bills, is paying for itself and making money and contributing to put the whole fire department budget in the black. And then you have the greater picture of the fire department budget itself, which within the last month has come into the black and is, outside of the loans, which we pay on, every year.
We haven't paid on them yet.
So part of the budget is to make payments on the loans. Yes, we have.
We have
Lance.
4 loans.
Oh, Lance, by looking at this statement, can you tell me which one of these calls were for Carl and which one of them were for John? And then which one of those calls Jeff went out on?
I believe that what we, no, I can't by looking at that because it's not in there, but I believe what we asked for was.
Let me finish though, so you can understand something, okay? We are trying to make an evaluation on the basis of whether or not the additional help was doing what Jeff said that it would do, that it would generate more revenue and it would sustain itself, okay? What I see on this report, I see numbers, but I see nothing that's broke out that tells me how much money was brought in by how many calls for Jeff, and for Carl, and for John, okay? So I have no way of giving an honest evaluation on how and what money was generated by the fact that we use these extra people to promote this program, okay? So that's one problem, okay? The next problem is there's issues on this page that, how did we come up to these numbers? I have, and any accountant would ask, okay, you have numbers here. Where is my paperwork to back up these numbers to substantiate, to verify exactly what is going on here, okay? It's not in this staff report. to make an honest evaluation, not being prejudiced one direction or other, but just to try to look at the information and evaluate it for what it reads, it's not here. So I have a hard time talking about any of these numbers, and the reason why some of these other things are brought up is because you don't know whether or not some of these numbers is money that's taken from the general fund. So that's the reason why some of these answers go back to the general fund of the Emergency Services Department, because there's no way to substantiate it by this report. Okay, go ahead, Lance.
Well, I guess the way I processed the back page that you're referring to that doesn't have Carl, John, or Jeff's name, the way I processed it was, I looked at the first column which says run number. And I guess I made a leap to assume that that was a number that was assigned to a trip that left our fire hall and answered a call. And I'm assuming that since these numbers aren't, some numbers aren't in there, that all of these calls were ones that were pulled out as requested by the council at the last meeting. That were pulled out as calls that Carl and John went on. Since this is a report about the paid on-call paramedic position, it only seemed natural to me that these would be the calls that involved just John and Carl, since that's what the whole report is about. Now, if there's some question about that, it seems like the guy that wrote the report's right here, and I'd like to ask him, is that what these calls are?
Lance, the first thing I want to say is, the first word you said was that you assume, okay? And we shouldn't have to assume.
Well, I'd like to respond to you. I'd like to respond to you.
Let me finish. We're sitting on the council, and we should not have to assume if we asked for the information the last time.
Jeff, is that what those runs are? Are those calls that John and Carl went on?
Can I answer the question?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, I don't have to assume. I'd also like to respond to the issue with the second page that you brought up, and those actually were referenced back to transports in a report at the last staff meeting. So we did have the paperwork that showed where those numbers came from in our last staff report at our last council meeting.
Actually, I'm going to disagree with that, because the last one had only to do with the transports. It didn't have anything to do with
That's what I just said,
anything else.
the
Okay.
transports.
Okay, but this is more than transports here.
Yeah, and that's why there's a back page which shows the rest of them.
Well, some of the rest of them, anyways, yeah.
Go ahead, Don.
Could I ask Mary Ann a couple questions?
Sure.
Of the funds the payments that we have received for the ambulance service, do you have any idea how much we have received in the last week or so?
In the last week, I believe we received a $29,000 one from Springfield.
And where was that money? Where did it go? Where is it applied?
It will be applied into the ambulance fund,
Okay.
the EMS fund.
Okay, and we will not, and before that money gets to that fund, it was zero?
What do you mean by before?
The ambulance fund, let's say that money hasn't been submitted to the ambulance fund, so it would be zero before that. We were negative, is that correct?
There's a negative cash balance in the EMS fund, yes.
Okay, by law, aren't we supposed to keep that positive?
By Oregon law, we were supposed to transfer funds at the end of June. That was not happened. That was a mistake on my part. I did not know that the fund had to be to zero. We did take an audit hit from that. If the fund does not get back up to zero or a greater balance and non-negative, then in June, yes, we will have to do the same thing. As we are hopeful, we hope that does not happen.
And, okay, that answers my question.
Eva?
I need to, can I ask Jeff just a quick question on money, or Mary
Yeah.
Ann? I just wanted, so we got the $23,000 that we were expecting, right?
We got that in January, yes.
We got 29,000,
I believe it's 29,000 in February from Springfield.
and then we have another 20 coming in from Multnomah County.
We will be getting 10,000 from Multnomah County within the next week or two. 5,000 will come in, I'm thinking it's April, and the other 5 will come in June. So by the end of June, we would have the full 20,000.
I have some
Tiffany?
questions I'd like Jeff to answer, so he should probably come up to them. On this last report, is there a reason why we don't have any numbers up here? I know it says waiting for Springfield. I'm assuming that's what FWFS means. However, you do know how much you billed these people, is that correct? I mean, you know how much you're billing for a call when you send it in?
If I calculate, like if I try and do the math based on the information on the call, yes, I could come up with that number, but I don't ever come up with those numbers. I send the what Springfield calls a ticket to them, and they calculate everything for us. So that's why you don't see that number. I'm not doing those calculations.
Okay, and then I have a question, because you have 2 hospital transports in there without numbers, but on our last report, we had numbers for those 2 transports. So how did you come up with those numbers?
Because for the report at the last council meeting, I actually did the calculation to show council what that number would have been when I was working with Springfield, because Springfield hadn't calculated those numbers yet. I had done that for them. They did not fill in the spreadsheet for me, so that's why those numbers are not there.
So these are, okay, so these 2 on the previous one, on the transports, those are what you perceive the income will be? Those are estimates?
No, those are what we would be billing, what the
Okay.
bill would be going out to the patient.
Okay, but you just said did you ask Springfield what that amount would be for those 2 particular transports?
Yeah, well, like I said, I calculated it, and it's based on our billing rates that we have adopted by resolution.
Okay.
So for an interfacility transfer, it's really easy to do that because you're looking at mileage and you're looking at a base rate for the patient. Now with the 911 calls, it's a little bit more difficult because you're dealing with hours for vehicles on scene, assuming that they're on scene for more than an hour, because we bill each vehicle by the hour. So if you have 2 vehicles that are there for 2 hours, you're charging 2 vehicles 4 hours. Interfacility transfers are a lot simpler to calculate, so that's why I did it. Like, there's less of a chance for me to make an error on calculating how much we would bill out on the interfacility transfer versus the other one.
Okay. But still, you didn't include that on this report?
Right, because like I said, I got these numbers straight from Springfield. I created the spreadsheet based on the calls that John and Carl went on, and I sent that to Springfield and I said, what do you have? Can you fill in the blanks for me? And so they filled in the blanks, and I didn't go back and add any of that other stuff because I tried to get this report out as fast as I possibly could for council. Normally I would have more time to do the report, but since this council meeting was moved up a week, I was, flying by the seat of my pants trying to get this complete as quick as I could.
Okay, and do you know what date these transports start on?
Are you talking about call number 131?
Yes.
I believe the first one is the 2nd of July.
Okay, and I'm curious how that can be when it wasn't authorized to hire the 2 paramedics, on-call paramedics, until August of 2010. So part of these numbers don't count as income because these 2 people were not hired until the first part of August, according to council rules.
According to the direction that I had from my supervisor at the time, we started the program with 1 individual, and that's where a large portion of the billable runs happened with. I I was also instructed by my supervisor to backdate the wages for the paid-on-call paramedics going back to July, once council approved that we could have 2 people filling 1 spot. Because when the new budget was adopted, starting July 1st, the paid-on-call program was in essence in effect. The only thing that wasn't was the 2 people. And like I said, I was directed by my supervisor to do that.
Okay, some other questions that I have are on the previous bill, on the previous listing that you gave us in the last council packet. You stated the average miscellaneous medical supply cost at $40. In this one, it has been downgraded to $30. So which is accurate?
Well, again, we're looking at 2 different things. We're looking at interfacility transfers, and then we're also looking at everything, 911 calls. When you increase the amount of calls that you're going to be projecting expenses to, you actually decrease the amount of your billable supplies, because not all of those supplies are actually used on calls. So if we're doing a non-transport, 9 times out of 10 we're doing a blood pressure, and we're using maybe the electricity from the batteries to check the patient's heart rate and make sure that they've got a good oxygen saturation. So again, it's a guesstimation. Now, you know, a lot of the calls where we are utilizing supplies, you're talking about pennies on the dollar. Nasal cannulas cost, I think, 89 cents. A headbed for securing somebody to a backboard, which is disposable, those are about $5. So it really depends. So it's an average for all the calls, but you know, we're not spending. We would spend a higher amount on the interfacility transfers than we would on the whole picture.
Okay, thank you. Oh, and also, was there a cost for these paid-on-call positions for uniforms? Did they get uniforms in addition for doing this job, or is that?
No, that's just everybody, and when they got their uniforms, it was prior to the paid-on-call position, so that's just part of the fire department budget.
And on these, you responded to none of these calls on this last chart that you gave us. This was just the 2 paid-on-call position.
There was a few calls that I did respond on, and I think the number is maybe like, out of all of these, 78 or 79 calls, I think maybe 13 times. But those were situations where we only had either Carl or John, and in order to operate the ambulance, somebody else had to be there. So you have 2 paramedics.
So was the cost for your wages deducted from these, in this as a cost? Was it considered as a cost?
Well, it depends. If you're talking about the straight time, which would be, for some people, considered overtime, no, it was not taken into consideration. If we did, you're looking at maybe $1,000, $2,000 total. As far as the other calls, a lot of them were during my normal duty day, so you wouldn't take that cost out because that's an already budgeted for expense.
But it is part of the expense of going on these calls.
Well, you'd be paying it whether or not we're going on the call or not, so.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Don?
On some of these calls, do we need an additional vehicle to accompany the ambulance?
Yes.
Is that cost in here? I didn't see it.
No, it's not.
Okay, but I know that when Dodson has to respond, they usually bring the brush truck up to get the people. Is that cost in there?
No, it's not. But again, those expenses are already budgeted for throughout the entire budget for the whole year.
But it's not part of the cost to compare this, is it? If it costs money, that you wouldn't have to do that if we weren't doing this, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
However,
No, that's all I asked, that's all I want to know.
Eva?
Just two things I was gonna ask. I can't remember when John moved you back in Lawndale, but both of the paramedics were here in town, right?
that is correct.
There's no additional vehicle that way.
That is correct.
But, one thing I wanted to do is, you know, think about medical billing is a hard thing because medical billing, you get a call today, there's gonna be a lag time before you get paid. It's not a thing of purchase, so that's the thing you gotta remember here too, is that what's usually the longest that it takes to get money in?
The longest are the fire calls, in terms of revenue that we're expecting. And a lot of that goes back to insurance. On average, it can take anywhere from 2 months to 6 months. It depends on the patient's insurance company and whether or not they're Medicare or Medicaid. But I guess to expand on some comments that were made earlier, the fire department budget has never been over budget in the 6 years that I've been here. Last year, we didn't bring in revenue, but we did not overexpend any line item that we had. We were actually revenue positive in the years 2006, 2007, and 2008. And a lot of that was based on the better billing practices that we employed after I got hired. The first year I was hired, the city only brought in $36,000 in ambulance revenue, and as I reported in the staff report, I believe it was 2006, we brought in, I want to say $98,456. So in essence, the ambulance revenue is stable as long as the billing is able to be completed.
But we haven't talked about servicing the debt. I mean, if someone gave me $450,000, I could probably do all right too. But this is what, and don't get me wrong, I think we should do everything we can possibly do. But we've still, everybody is talking, no one wants to talk about the big debts we've got. We can bankrupt the city. We can. Eventually, somehow we have to put money away to service our debts. This has to happen. And we don't just have one debt. We're servicing a debt for the sewer now. We've got another debt, and you can't look at any one program unless you look at the rest of the debts. And we just can't keep ignoring this.
Eva?
Only I was gonna say is that this is not a budget meeting though, this is about, this program.
Yeah, I know.
This is where we should be, and I know that, because we're going pretty heavy on all that stuff, and I agree that we need to have a sound budget. But I don't think that's a lot of the conversation we're having these days.
Well, we're deciding if this is economically feasible. And
I think it is.
Go ahead, Tom.
So again, on this point, I do believe there are some issues that we have with emergency service because of debt, because of a lot of things that go on here. But again, it seems to me, and I'm not a great numbers guy on it, but it seems to me that for the most part, we try to bill a couple of $1,000s for something. Usually things would come around in there, and you want to transports, we made $700 minimum on those things. But the cost for these people to go, their cost was basically $100. So we're putting out $100 to make $700. $700 was the gross. Their cost was the $100. And again, to me, it seems like when you pay the same thing, when you pay a person to be a paramedic for a year, you give them this whole year thing, and they make so many calls, but there's a lot of time that they're not going on calls, and you're still paying them. With this program, you're paying the person only to go on that call, go out and do that thing, and you give them $100 to do that. Part of what I wanted to happen, I believe was going to happen, I'm not sure that it happened enough in here, was part of what the program along was that we're going to allow comp time on the chief, and we're trying to eliminate that comp time. So we got the big issue with that, where we're going to have to pay overtime. So we eliminate comp time, winning overtime. So part of the reason that I was in favor of the program was to be able to eliminate the chief's overtime. But in the 6 months, we still got quite a bit of overtime. So I have some issues with maybe how everything is working, and I think we need to take a look at how everything's working. But it seems to me, same thing, when you've got a person out there, then you're paying them, that's all you're giving them. I mean, maybe $5,000, you give them $100 basically to go out and do a call. And most all of our calls make at least gross $700, and I don't think that all the costs above the $100 is gonna reach that. I don't think it's gonna reach that $700. So personally for me, out of all the things that we do, this program is the only thing in there that actually has a chance of providing income. But I think there are still some issues. I think there's some things we still need to take a look at how the whole thing's going, and whether we can we need to keep working at eliminating overtime on the chief, because I think that's digging into the program. I think there's things that dig into the program. They talk about somebody has to be the scene. If you're out on the freeway, somebody has to lead the scene. Prior to the program, the chief went out on it as the paramedic, so they had done the scene somehow with just one person. But now it looks like when one of our guys goes, if the chief's available, he goes out to lead the scene. So you've added expense. The program is added expense because we go on out there to try to accommodate what needs to be accommodated out at the scene. But it's the same problem. It's the same problem. As you add these things, as you try to meet all the criteria everybody's asking for, it adds costs to the department, to the community, the whole thing. And the Cascade Locks does need to look at. They need to look at what costs are here, but this program, and that's what we're talking about tonight, this program to me seems that it would have to be in a position where it just doesn't break even. It's got to make a little bit of money. Maybe not a ton of money, but a little bit of money. And that's, I'm done.
Tom?
I agree if it pays its way, but just, I don't know how much you've looked at this, but if you just take what we're allotting for fuel, $300 for fuel for all of this run. $300 would buy 100 gallons of gas at $3 a gallon. You get 10 miles to the gallon, which I think is, it's pretty good if you can get 10 miles to the gallon if you're driving an ambulance very hard. That's 1,000 miles. We took 7 transfers. I think if you figure up the transfers, how many miles it is, and we didn't figure up any of the assisting vehicles, that's one thing. It's just, I don't believe, if we're just saying, is this going to make money? I don't believe the figures here correspond with what we should have. I don't think it's going to make money. If it doesn't make money, then we've got to decide if we want to do it. Where is the money going to come from? Where are we going to get the money? Are we always going to get the return? How are we going to do it? And the reason I brought up some of the debts, we've got to think of how we're going to pay for things, whether it's this program or the next program. And I know that the chief is thinking, pretty soon we're going to have another ambulance. That's $150,000. And people say, we don't need depreciation. Okay, I know, government doesn't use depreciation, then call it replacement fund. We've got to replace stuff. Where are we going to get the $150,000 to replace an ambulance? Because if I'm correct, we now have 2 ambulances, we have 3 fire trucks, and I think we have 2 brush trucks. I think we have one of the best fire departments for a small town in the state of Oregon. Now we've got to figure out how to pay for it.
Lance?
Okay. First of all, when I looked at the transports at the last meeting, I saw, $100 in wages, maybe another 100, maybe not quite another 100 in expenses, but I saw closer to $1,200 as an average return. So I understand that you're looking at $100 going out in wages, minimum of $700 coming back, but When you look at the averages, it's actually more than that. And when you look at the totals, it's also more than that. So when you look at this program here in black and white, it is paying for itself, assuming even half the people pay their bills. It's a program that's paying for itself and then some. So this particular program appears to be working. I do have a question, though, about the fuel. How did you calculate the $300 for fuel?
Well, first, we don't use gas in our ambulances, we use diesel.
It's more.
Right, but diesel, you get a better return on your mileage in terms of distance than you do with gasoline. And that was based on our average gallons that we get throughout a specific call period. And I think it took 1 month, and I averaged that out and estimated the cost to be $300 and projected that over the 6 months.
That's for all the support vehicles and everything.
No, that was just for the ambulance.
That's not everything. We gotta talk about everything.
Eva?
Something. Anytime that you try a new venture, if you start out in a business and you come up with a new idea, a new money source, it's got to have time to see what your return is really going to be like. So I'm not convinced that this program, I'm clearly not convinced that this program isn't worth keeping an eye on. But if it's something that's potentially going to make us money and try to, like as Aunt Lance is saying, if it's something that does a few things, we've got more paramedic coverage, we are able to support it, maybe even make some money off of it, those kind of things. I just don't see how that can't be sound to try it. And anytime you go to business, you're working off for some projection.
I got something to say. You know, the big thing that, my thing that I have a problem is the information that we needed to evaluate this, okay? There's been several things brought up tonight. We once asked a question earlier that all these calls were just for Carl and John. And then later on, you said, oh no, possibly 13 of those calls you were on, okay? So, number one, that throws a little shadow on what I'm trying to look at, okay? So, the next thing is then we hear about where you were advised by your supervisor to backdate labor billings, okay? And then where we're actually taking the dates where these actually start and where they stop, okay? My biggest concern is, I mean, I'll be the first one to tell everybody, I had a heart attack. I buy the extra ambulance insurance every year, okay? I like the thought of there being an ambulance around when it's needed. So, all that aside, my responsibility as a mayor and as a person of this council is to do what we're required to do to evaluate this program, okay? And the whole thing that we're trying to do tonight is evaluate this program based off the information that we're getting. And unfortunately, in my eyes, I mean, and I've run construction jobs and been aware of budgets and what costs are and everything else. It is extremely difficult to come up with an easy way to go through your billings, to go through the costs, and to justify whether or not we should give you additional money for your program, okay? And the part about this is, if you're driving a truck, you're the responsible person for the truck, all right? Nobody else. If you're the driver, you're the responsible person. End of the line, okay? It would have been so much easier if you could have brought all this and it was all substantiated, it was all just the way it should have been, and that's the point that bothers me the most, is we can't come to an easy conclusion of what this should be because we still don't know. Because, well, there's 61%. And granted, it's hard to build. And I'm not saying that you're not a great paramedic and you're not a great fire chief. That's not the point. The point is the whole council's here to try, we have budget problems, and we have things that we need to do, and we have to, for the interest of the community, we have to try to do the best that we can do. All right? No more, no less. We're not getting paid to do this. We're all doing this because we think it's for the betterment of the community. Okay? So, with that being said, I don't have anything more to say about this. I entertain a motion if there's a council member who wants to make a motion. Yes, Jeff?
I'm just a little confused, sir, because at the last council meeting, I was given specific instructions on what to report to the council. And I took your direction and I worked with Mary Ann, and both she and I, in addition to spending staff time with Kathy, looked over the minutes. And as far as I'm concerned, and based on what was directed to me by council, I provided you with the information that you requested. So if this is not acceptable, I would just ask that the next time, it's pretty explicit as to what information that the council requires. So I can try and do the best job that I can. Because like you said, you know, my job is as a fire chief and a paramedic. I'm not a numbers guy. I don't do statistics, and you know, it's not my full-time job. I'm doing the best I can. And you know, in terms of you know, backdating time cards, if I'm directed to do so, I do so. I have to follow orders just like anybody else. So I guess I just need to understand with that particular one, did I do something wrong?
That's all, I guess that's all up to you, because anybody's entitled to do whatever they want to do. I'm not you. I'm just saying, if it was me, I wouldn't have did that. But that's just me. So, thank you.
So do we need to just table this and get some more, continue to get more information?
No, I'd entertain a motion, but I don't know about tabling it. No motions? Okay, I'll table it.
Lance has got his hand up.
Lance?
Well, I'll make a motion that we continue the paid on-call paramedic position.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Lance and seconded by Tom to maintain the paramedic position,
The paid on-call
the
paramedic.
paid on-call position.
Do you have any parameters you're setting on that?
Well, I'd like to have a report back in 3 months, so I could add that to the motion.
And
To be reviewed again in 3 months.
with a value, a monetary value?
Because I believe it's paying for itself, I don't believe that there's the need for that. It's proven over the last 6 months to me that it has paid for itself. So, Tom, would you accept that
Sure.
change to the motion?
So we're extending it for 3 months?
To be reviewed again in 3 months.
And no limit on how much can be spent.
He didn't say anything about spending.
Well, I'm assuming that in the next 3 months, we're going to get the same report back, that the position is paying for itself. If it's not paying for itself in 3 months, we would make a change at that point. I mean, it's over 6 months, it's cost $5,000 and made $9,000, so.
So it's been moved and seconded.
It's been moved and seconded that we extend the paid on-call paramedic position for 3 months,
To be reviewed in 3 months.
to be reviewed in 3 months. And anything else? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye. So we'll have to take a roll call vote.
I think you should.
Councilmember Hank?
No?
Councilmember Pruitt?
No.
Councilmember Masters?
Yes.
Councilmember Cramblett?
Yes.
Councilmember Benson?
No.
Councilmember Zerfing?
Yes.
Mayor Fisher?
No.
So we got tabled then, or did you?
No.
For another motion?
No, the motion
Right,
was denied.
Motion failed.
right. So we're still just sitting here.
At the last meeting, we funded the position for another
Till
month.
the end of,
Right, till the end of this month.
to the end of this month.
So is there more information you want on the month, or wait for another motion?
For another motion for what? It died. It's
Well,
not
it can be
being- it's
another
not
motion.
Don, I would like to make a comment why I voted no. And the reason is, I don't think it's paying for itself. Because we've already found quite a few things that aren't even included in this. I don't know how anyone can know if it is paying for itself. I can make all kinds of figures, and I personally do not feel it's paying. In the last meeting, I voted to try it longer because I did not feel I had enough information at that time to make a decision. Now I think I have enough time, I've had enough time to make a decision.
Any other comments? I say we table this.
No, it died. What, we don't need to take
Maybe it's
Well, turn the thing on.
10-minute break.
maybe.
Yeah, let's take a break. 10-minute break for everybody.
No, I just have a question for you, sir. I need direction from the council, what to do with the current staff, the paid-on-call staff. Are we stopping immediately right now, or are we stopping March 1st?
The motion that we made at the last meeting was that it would go through the end of February for $2,000.
Whichever came
So
first.
I would say that that's still in effect because that hasn't been changed.
Okay,
So
that's all I needed to know.
next on the agenda is to discuss interim city administrator process.
I'm wondering if, before we get into this, if we could do the professional services contract with Larry Epstein since he's here. And
Oh, yes, let's do Larry. Okay. Sorry, Larry.
unless he needs to, or did you need to be part of the CCHC discussion? Was that? No, okay.
Okay. So, is there any discussion on the contract with Larry Epstein from the council?
I did have one question on the contract. Yeah, on page 3, for, under arbitration, it says arbitration by the chief judge of the Multnomah County Circuit Court. Should that be Hood River Court since we're in Hood River, or does it make any difference?
You care?
I don't care.
Actually, probably Multnomah County is better for a couple of reasons. One, Larry's in Multnomah County. I'm closer to Multnomah County, and I would probably be the one arbitrating it. And third, I think the arbitration system in Multnomah County is very good. So that'd be my recommendation. Could it be Hood River if you want it? Sure.
You have had a chance to go through this contract?
I'm sorry?
Mr. Jordan, you have looked through the contract?
Yeah.
So is there no further questions for Mr. Epstein? Don?
Just one, how long would it normally take for you to respond if we had something come up? How much notice would you normally require?
It's going to depend on the case. Every case is different. In a typical, if you had such a thing, conditional use permit or land division, something that wasn't a very simple ministerial process that involves some discretion. I'm usually able to determine whether the application is complete within the 10 days allowed by law. I'm usually able to produce a staff report within 3 weeks after it's deemed complete. So if someone submitted a complete application, we'd be able to get to hearing within 5 to 6 weeks after the application was submitted in a typical case.
Any other questions of council? I'd entertain, Lance?
Well, the $130 per hour rate, I want to make sure I'm correct in assuming that that's all being paid by the applicant, not by the city.
You want to answer or you want me to?
Well, as I was talking, if you want me to, I can say what I told
Go
you.
ahead, Kathy.
Most cases, we have an application come in, basically, they're going to be paying the fees. There may be something come in, like we have an application, maybe Larry looks at it, he spends time, and then maybe the applicant decides they don't want to continue or whatever, then we may have 2 or 3 hours into a consultant with no money coming in.
If I can add one more hypothetical. If the city wants me to do something,
Yes.
to revise its code, to come up with some procedures, to participate in a training session, then there's no applicant.
Marion, do we have a set amount for planning, to pay a planning consultant? I mean, we don't? So how do we pay for, like, code revisions?
It comes out of our budget, but understand that when we budgeted, actually, excuse me, I believe it is 50,000. Because I think we budget 100,000 for planning fees that the clients pay for, and 50,000 for services, other services the city does. Again, I'd have to look at the budget. I don't keep the budget in my.
Yeah, it's just a question that popped into my head.
I believe we used $8,000, seems like 8,006 in my head that we used of our 50,000. But I would need to look at that before I could give you a concrete.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to blindside you, it just came to my head, I just now thought to ask it. So I'll make a motion to approve the professional services contract with Larry Epstein.
Second. It's been moved by Tiffany to approve Larry Epstein's contract and seconded by Kevin Benson.
Discussion.
Discussion?
I just wanted to state it for the record that in our previous planner, the rate was $45 an hour. So it has increased to do planning business in Cascade Locks as a result of this. I'm not saying that to oppose this contract, because I do support it. I think it's something we have to have. But it is a decision. If we pass this motion, we are making it more expensive to do planning work in Cascade Locks. So I just wanted to state that for the record.
And I want to state that this is on a temporary basis until we have time to find another planning consultant.
Any other discussion? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of approving Larry Epstein's contract?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Now, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Larry.
And I hope on board.
You get what you pay for.
We're gonna work you hard for it, how about it?
Or hardly work you, whatever we can get away with.
And that is the other thing, I don't do anything unless you ask me to do it, so,
Thank you.
although I understand you're about to ask me to do it.
Careful what you wish for.
Thank you very much, you're a tough crowd, and it's been a pleasure.
Okay. All right. So,
Back up to.
now we will go back up to discuss interim city administrator process. Is there any discussion from the council?
Well, I think we needed to explain why we're having this discussion again. Were you gonna say something on that?
According to charter contract, or charter law, I should say, our charter stipulates that we must have that we must have an interim city administrator, or we must have a city administrator.
No, we're discussing the process right now. The process of what we're gonna do to look for an interim city administrator.
Right.
And what that had to do with, we had to have 5 people on a committee.
Correct, okay. Anyway, we have to look for an interim city administrator, okay? And at one of the prior meetings, I had asked to have a subcommittee to look into reviewing the applications for a city administrator. Lance brought it to our attention that it wasn't proper to have a 3-member subcommittee, and we did further investigations into it, and anyway, so we can't have a 3-member subcommittee. So with that being said, for simplistic, just to get things going, and because we really need to get an interim city administrator, I'm going to appoint Kevin Benson to look into reviewing and getting the information on the interim city administrators that are currently available and looking at this position. So at this time, I guess, take a consensus vote if that's fine. Kevin, are you willing?
I'm not sure that you can appoint me, but I think after discussion, the council could give me the authority to do it.
Oh,
but I'm not
okay.
sure that I can be appointed to anything.
Oh, all right.
And this revolves around the interim person, finding someone to come in and fill the gap between now and when we, or later, and when we finally begin the search for a full-time person. So it's one step more than was done the last time we had a vacancy, where they just appointed the person that was here. I'm certainly not going to look at applications from relatives or anyone else. It's simply just going through the applications and talking to the people and narrowing it down so we can bring a couple people to council so that they can make the decision. I'm not deciding anything anyway.
Lance?
Okay, well, I'm not quite clear on what you're talking about, that I said we can't have a subcommittee. I just pointed out that we have rules about creating committees, and I asked what the purpose of the 3-person committee that you appointed, what the purpose was. And I believe what you told me was that they're going to review resumes, conduct interviews, and make a recommendation to council. So, is that changing now? Is it going to be one person doing that? Or rather, as Kevin just said, is he going to sort through resumes and bring in 2 or 3 people for us to look at? I'm just, all I'm going to do is just asking questions. I'm trying to understand the process.
That's fine. Tiffany?
And I'll say that through legal counsel, it was brought to our attention that we do need to have 5 people on a committee, if we're going to have a committee. And right now, it just doesn't seem like time-wise, prudently, makes it a very long process. So it has to change because of our council procedures and our advice from Angela, I think it was.
Cindy Phillips.
Cindy, yeah. After looking at Oregon state law and our charter and all that. So. Council was.
Go ahead, Lance.
I thought what she said from Oregon state law was that if this committee that had been appointed were to meet, it would be a public meeting. I didn't hear her say that she couldn't do it, that we couldn't do it.
Nor did I. This is new.
That it needed to be 5 people instead of 3.
And we're, for what reason?
I don't know, it was in that email, and then also we'd have to record minutes on it, and that they're, public.
Yeah, public meeting.
Right.
They'd have to have public meetings.
Right. That was my understanding of it. Maybe I misread it, but.
Yeah, basically, depending on exactly what the committee was doing, and it being a committee making decisions, and it's a public meeting. People getting together to debate and make a decision is a public meeting.
Or make a recommendation to the council.
That was basically what her
Is a
name was.
public meeting. I don't know why you couldn't have 3, though. I should have talked to her
Well,
before.
she still said it depended on basically what the committee was doing. If they were meeting and deciding instead of bringing it to
Yeah,
the council.
The point here is not that you can't have 3.
Okay.
The question only has to do with whether the meetings are public or private. You can have a 3-person committee, you can have a 2-person committee, a 7-person. Okay? We will then advise the committee on whether the meetings have to be public, and they probably will have to be, which is fine,
Unless one person does it.
unless one
At the
person does it,
recommendation
then
of the council.
yeah.
What's the council think? I just wanted to try to expedite things so that we can get somebody in here to look at. Don?
Well, it looks like that every time, say you had 5 possible people, you might have to have 5 public meetings. How often can you have, and you have to announce it could take 6 months to get it ready to come to council.
Right.
And that, from what I understand, we need somebody in here, and it seems to me like it can just narrow it down.
Mayor, let me interrupt. Normally, this is a pretty simple process. You just call the League of Oregon Cities, and they've got a list of interim city managers,
We have
and
that
they'll
list.
ship you out a list in a couple hours.
We have that.
We have that.
You've already done that.
Yeah. So now we
And
need
how
to,
many do you have?
we have 5 or 6.
5, I think, maybe 6,
Then what's the purpose of the committee? I'm not,
to go through and evaluate those applications,
And
narrow it down to the top 3.
okay?
Yeah, Lance?
Why wouldn't the council just do that? Why would there be a committee?
I guess we can do that then if we want. We'll put it on the next meeting's agenda and do that then.
That's 3 weeks.
So we're all gonna get together and interview all of these people?
We have all these people
and-
come at the same time, so we.
Well, what was actually just said was that the committee would look through the 5 or 6 the League of Oregon Cities sent out and narrow it down to 3, right? Not
So that's
contact all
all-
these people, but look.
That's all I was gonna have Kevin do, just narrow it down to 3, but I guess.
And I'm not saying there's a problem with that, I'm just saying why, if there's 6 resumes, why not have the council look at those 6 and pick out the 3 that we like and interview the 3 we like? And what would be the normal process to hire an interim? Because you're talking about something you've seen before, that's an expedited process.
I think I agree with you that 6, you could probably do yourself. I mean, if you want to have a committee go through and narrow it down to 3, that's done as well. I don't think I can tell you what's standard in the business. You could probably do 6. If it were 15, I'd say do a committee. That's too much for the council to do.
I had a question. So how do you talk to the people as an individual council person? You can't call them really and talk to and interview them at all, unless you're given direction by the authority to do that by the council. So you're just going to go strictly off of the piece of paper. You're going to weed people out based on that. You're not going to give them the a telephone call to talk to them, to try and see if maybe their resume may be embellished a little bit or better than what it, I mean, I'm sure no one would ever do that, but it seems like there should be some communication, but we can't do that as a council on the other 4 that we're not going to interview.
You're asking me?
Without direction.
You're asking me a question?
I'm asking the council as a whole.
Oh, okay.
Are we gonna be able to do that?
You could interview all of them. You could interview all of them by telephone.
As a council though, not as individuals.
As a council, or actually you could do it as an individual, as individuals. I think that's a highly disorganized way of
Yeah,
doing it.
exactly.
I don't think it's illegal, but it's a bad idea.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, having been through, I think some of us have been through interview processes, and normally how it works is you sort through a stack of resumes or applications, and you pull out the ones that look the best to you, and then you interview those ones. And I guess that's all I would suggest, is that we do that.
Don?
If I'm understanding this right, then we would invite the 6 people to our next council meeting, assuming they all 6 can get here. And then they're gonna be all sitting here, and we're gonna interview them one at a time, or bring them in one at a time, or how will this, I've never done it this way, and I've interviewed a few people myself. I like to do it separate. I wouldn't want them all sitting right here when I'm interviewing them.
Well, no.
And I'd like to talk to them and find out, Tiffany, a little bit more than what's going to show on this.
Yeah, I would prefer to have Kevin just go through them and weed it down to 3. I think he's, I think he can handle that. And it would save us time and save us coordinating everybody be here at the same, or at the same time, 5 standing out there while we're interviewing, 1 in here or whatever. So I'm comfortable with Kevin doing it.
I also am.
Okay. Eva?
Well, I have another quick idea. If you have 6 people, could you not get everybody's resume? Everybody's got a resume that they're gonna have. And then you could even go further. You could have just a little questionnaire, right, that everybody answers the same questions. And then we could be dispersed to us, and couldn't we as individuals say, I like number 1, these are 1, 2, 3 that I like, you take the top 2 or 3? I mean, and then Kevin could either he could get hold of them and talk to them, do a phone, you see them.
How much time do you want to invest in this, though? I mean, we've already been without one for a while, and to me, I would just prefer to get an interim in here as soon as we can. Yeah, before
Yes,
budget,
Lance?
yes.
So if I understand you right, you're saying have Kevin go through 6 applications and pick out 3 that we would then interview at the next meeting. Is that what you're suggesting?
Sure. I mean, that's
Okay.
better than
And then,
6.
so then how do we answer Don's question about whether they're all going to be in here, or
I
whether they're
think
going to be
it'd be best
standing
to
out?
call them on the phone. Do a phone call, that way they're individualized, and they're not hearing what everybody else is saying.
Well,
You can ask them.
bring them in.
You can ask them to leave the room.
Yeah, you can have them send this
Oh, that's true, too.
for 3, yeah.
3 would
You
be
could
bad.
ask 6 to leave the room, but I mean, it's easier to interview 3 people than it is to interview 6.
Kevin?
Would that be executive session type stuff, or would that be public meeting stuff? The interview process itself,
Yes, you can have an executive session.
for the interview.
For the salary.
Yes,
Yeah.
for the interview. We'll make sure of that, but I think that's all.
Is that the new book, Kathy?
Pardon?
Is that the new book? So I'm comfortable with Kevin doing it.
Okay, let's take a consensus vote. Don?
Yes, I'm comfortable with Kevin doing it.
Tiffany?
I'm comfortable.
Lance?
I'm fine with the whole council looking at those applications.
Okay, Tom?
I'm fine with you.
Eva?
I have to tell you that I'd like to take a look, and get, this many people's ideas, just to be able to look at them, and then, but, I'd like to have a look, and
I mean, we have, you have all the resumes.
We have all the applications, because my thing would be, can we give any individual input?
You can talk to Kevin.
You know, we can Kevin and ask him questions.
As long as I have input, I'm only one person, but as long as we all have input to be able to do that, then I don't have a problem with Kevin doing it.
Kevin?
I really could care less either way, but
All right,
But
I'm
you
good
would
with
do
it.
it?
I would do it.
Okay, I'm
I've
good
done it
with it
before,
too
a
then.
couple times before.
So, Kevin, you take care of that?
May I ask a question? Yeah.
Yes, Kathy.
Do you need those resumes again, or do you still have
No, I
them?
haven't.
Does everybody still have them? Then,
I still have mine.
When did we get them and where were they?
We've had them for a while.
quite a while ago.
I don't think I still have them then, so if I'm gonna give Kevin input, I'd want another
I think
copy.
I've got mine still here.
Andy?
The answer to your question, Council, was that yes, you can have an executive session to do your interviews and consider the employment, as long as you have the criteria that you're going to use adopted prior to that executive session. I assume normally the criteria that councils use would be a job description. I assume we have a job description, although I don't know that. On the other hand, I'll also tell you that these days, most of these interviews are done in public meetings. Rarely do they occur in executive
The
session.
the entire interview process, or?
Most of the interviews, we're just talking about interviews, you can have, again, you can have an executive session to talk about it. But most of the interviews these days are being done in open meetings.
Even if you discuss the salary so they could go outside.
Well, no, we would discuss the salary after we decide who we're gonna hire.
Salary
That's,
is
that's
something
putting the cart before the horse.
Lance?
What village did theirs look like?
So, then my other question is, so Kevin will report back, I'm assuming before the packet goes out for the next meeting,
Mm-hmm.
3 people that he wants to consider, and then there's going to be an interview process. Most interview processes I've been involved with, there's sort of a set of questions that either you give to the candidate or you don't give to the candidate, but it's the same question throughout. Is that something we're going to do, or is it just going to be sort of an ad hoc, what occurs to me, I will ask? Because that's the when I saw this on the agenda, that's what I thought we were talking about, was the process by which we're going to do these interviews. So I'm just curious what the plan is.
Eva?
When I've been involved in interviewing before, I thought that pretty much when you have a group of people, you need to ask them the same questions base, and then you could maybe go off of those questions, but the base questions had to be the same, everybody had to have the same opportunity to answer.
There's no law to that effect.
No
You
law.
can do it however you want. You don't even have to have interviews if you don't want to.
We can just pick one.
You could.
That's what we did last time.
Okay. As far as the process, I understand the set rule of having a set number of questions for everybody. But then I also know that there's a point where each individual might inspire a different question of each and every council member. So, I guess that's just whatever the whole council wants to do. It doesn't really matter to me one way or the other. Yeah, Don?
Well, I've noticed when I've interviewed people, I would ask questions depending on what they stated on their application. If they said they worked for Joe Blow 10 years, I'd want to ask questions about Joe Blow. If the other one didn't work for Joe Blow, I wouldn't ask him that same question. I don't decide what I'm going to ask until I look at their resume. And every single person, I might ask different questions, unless they all were their resumes were exactly the same. I base my questions on the resume.
I think it's important to ask, I'm sure Kevin's aware of this, and I think his is just a precursor interview to what the question, so you were trying to come up with questions that we're specifically gonna ask each one when they get here? Is that what you're trying to come up with?
Yeah, because it sounds to me like what we've said is Kevin picks his top 3, and then those top 3 get interviewed. I'm trying to figure out, well, we all show up to that meeting, and one of the agenda items is interview, and then we ask that person to step up or whatever. What's the next part of the process? And I'm just sharing that what I've been through, interviews at least have a set number of questions, set questions that standard information that we want to hear from all of the candidates. Are we going to do that, or is it just going to be raise your hand if you have a question? What's the process? What's the plan? That's all I'm asking.
I think that each of us should just come up with a couple, two or three questions that we each want to ask, and ask them consistently to each of the, and maybe compare them to make sure that, at the council meeting, compare them to make sure that we're not quadrupling the same question.
So get here a little early and look at everyone's questions.
Yeah, I think that would work.
That might be the best thing. Go ahead, Chuck.
Being part of the public sector, most of the things have to go up for RFP, but this one, since it's an interim, I think you can skip the RFP process. However, for the interest of keeping the city without liability, you'd have to ask the same questions. Not in your private industry, you could ask whatever questions you want, but in the interest of somebody saying, I was treated unfairly because I'm X, and you didn't ask me this question or give me the opportunity to ask that question, then they could come back and there could be a lawsuit potentially that they were treated unfairly for that position. So you have to keep all the questions the same, and if you have a follow-up question, at the end of the question would be, is there anything else you'd like to add to that? You can do that, but based upon what you were saying, Councilmember Hague, was you can't do that because it's not unfair. That's then becomes an unfair process. And yeah, it's semantics at a point, but if somebody raises their hand and cries foul, where are you at? And you have to start the process.
And that's why we come up. That's why we would come up with our own questions. We each come up with 2 or 3 questions, and we all ask the same.
Last time
same questions for
when
each.
we did the hiring, that's how we did it. Well, came with a couple of questions that were on that committee.
That was a really excellent idea to ask them, okay, well, what do you have to add?
Right,
What makes you different?
and that could be the mayor's job.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll ask.
Okay, so that answers that question. Thank you. If that's something we're all going to do, we probably have to have a consensus or whatever. But another question I'd have would be, let's say Kevin picks his top 3, but only 2 of them are available at our next meeting. Are we going to reschedule or wait until we get that, that one that maybe that's his number 1? We're going to wait until they're available? What, are we going to call another meeting on a Friday night? What are we going to do?
Do whatever works. So.
What's the plan
Here's
there?
maybe a better solution is I will call these people and collect more information from them, and I will distribute that information to you guys, and you guys can rank them 1, 2, 3. That way there's no confusion or anything else.
Can't do that.
We can send it to Kathy, and she can correlate.
We can make it as big of a process as we want to make it. Really, we can run it through next December, or we can get something going now. We do need to adopt the criteria that Mr. Jordan was talking about prior to meeting with these guys. The job description, or if we're going to discuss it in executive session, we need to get that out of the way as well. We need to get some momentum going in some direction, because that's what we have relied on the city administrator to do in the past. So we're going to sit here and do nothing, or we're going to start moving in a direction. I'm certainly not going to have no intention of going out and hiring somebody tomorrow. I would like to see the process at least move one step forward tonight. And I'm not meaning to step on anyone's toes or make it seem that I have some special authority or anything else. It's just, it seems like it would be easier if one person could maybe talk to these people with council's approval and maybe start moving the process at least an inch forward. but that remains to be seen.
Well, you got a consensus on that.
Yeah,
We just did a consensus
Yeah,
on
we
that,
just
yeah.
did.
You got a consensus on that, so.
That's already going that direction, so let's have a consensus then on the direction that, we're all gonna write down 2 questions, or 3 questions, to ask, and then we'll send those to Kathy so she can compile them, okay? Does everybody agree to 2 or 3 questions?
Well, let's give a specific number, because some will send in 2,
Let's
some will send in
go
3.
3.
Okay.
That way everybody has a chance to have 3 questions.
Sounds good.
And by when?
And,
Within a week. We should be able to come up with
we should be able to come up with 3 questions, should be able to have them in by
the
Friday.
Yeah, by Friday.
Let's have them, try to have them in by Friday morning so Kathy could go through them and send them out Friday afternoon. Okay. Is there agreement on 3 questions?
Yes.
Tom? I agree.
Yes.
Tiffany? Lance? Tom?
Yeah.
Kevin?
Yeah.
Eva? I agree too. So we're 3 questions from everybody in the council, and we'll do that. And,
Okay,
go ahead, Tiffany.
That being said, until then, we do not have a city administrator, and so, and our charter says that we need to have a city administrator. And I've already talked to George about this, and he's consented to being the interim unpaid city administrator until this process happens, because we do have things that need to be done, that need to be signed, that need to be verified by the city administrator, and there's still lots of questions as to what George can do and what George can't do, because nothing's really laid out very clearly.
Lance?
Well, I just wanted to return to my question about, are we doing all the interviews at the next council meeting? Because I don't think that ever got answered. So if Kevin's picking the top 3, then he brings those in. We have our list of 21 questions.
No, you're right.
Actually,
Then-
we'll just ask them when they can appear, and if the one day that they can, all 3 appear, then we can.
I mean, do we
have a
want
special
it by
meeting.
the next council meeting? If they're not available, do we want to just go with those 2 that are available? How do we want to?
No, I
I'm assuming if they put their
We don't know that until,
I don't know that any of them will be available.
we'll have to find out.
but what's the plan? Would the plan be to have the interviews at the next council meeting? That's what I'm asking.
That would be ideal, and then if it wasn't at the next council meeting, we would have to schedule a date where we can try to get those people here and then have an interview. But hopefully it's at the next council meeting, so that it's here.
Right, and so I guess if we've got our top 3, we think those are the ones we want to interview.
And if only 2 show up, we're gonna have to interview 2 at the council meeting. If one decides not to show up, then
We'll have to see. if
that's
we can-
unfortunate.
So we're establishing the next council meeting as the interview date. If you can make it, you can apply for this job. If you can't, you
I would
don't.
agree with that.
I don't agree with that
You don't agree, you said?
either. I don't agree with
You
that.
don't agree with it?
We
Okay.
could- I mean,
It's either that or we gotta have it, we gotta have that somewhere in that time zone. If it's not on Monday, it has to be Tuesday. Then we have to try to get all these people in and get those interviews done.
And I
So
think Kelly
that's
can-
the only problem that we're gonna have, Lance, is if we can't get a certain person on a date, then everybody who wants to be here has to be here. If they can't be here, then all the questions that are given in are all still gonna be asked. So each council member's questions will be asked if a council member can't make it to the following meeting, if we can't get them all here at the same date. Does everybody agree to
I
that?
agree.
I don't understand what you're saying. First of all, is it, when you say everybody, are you talking about the candidates, or are you talking
No,
about
I'm
the council members?
If a council member, first, if a candidate can't make it, we have to find a date that the candidate can make it. And then the council will have to be here on that date. But if there's a council member who doesn't show up, be reassured that the questions that you sent in were still going to be asked for them, because Eva might have to work, or you might have another engagement. It's gonna be really difficult to get everybody here again on a scheduled date. That's all I'm trying to say. You see what I'm saying?
But we're gonna move, I guess what I'm trying to clarify, we're gonna move the council meeting around to fit the schedule of the candidates, not vice versa. Ask them to fit our schedule.
Well, ideally, first, we're gonna ask them to fit our schedule. And then if they can't, then we'll have to move things around to get all the interviews in. Everybody agree with that?
Yes,
Yes?
I do.
Okay. We're all in agreement on that.
Oh, no, you didn't
Well,
get
I
it.
just had to think, I know a lot of times when I try to set things up, I'll try to give them, like, you know, if there's like 3 dates that we all, if we sit there and go, okay, well, I have, you know, Monday, not the, like the 21st and the 28th, I know that I'm available, and then, you know, like, I'm just saying, for me, Tuesdays, I'm available too in the evening, so, I mean, you know what I'm saying, can we just like quickly do a consensus and see if there's a couple of dates that we could offer, even 3, you know, dates, and then that way the people can say, yeah, this one will work for me, I don't know.
I think it would be,
I think it would be easy to correlate them because they're all coming from different directions. We all live here, so find out when they can come and see if there's one day that all 3 of them can come, and then.
we might be lucky, they might all come on the next council meeting.
On Monday, yeah.
We just have to call and ask. A lot of times people are more susceptible to coming if they think they're gonna be hired for a job. Okay?
Well, I would prefer that we say, we set aside Monday nights.
Well, that's what I said originally. You know, originally, that's what I hoped would happen. That they would come on a Monday night.
And hopefully the next meeting Monday night.
Right. Okay. So, is there any further discussion on this item, on that?
Not
Okay.
specifically on that, but what I said before, Lance went back to that. I think that we need to appoint George as the interim city administrator without pay, just to be able to keep things moving along.
And I don't have a problem doing that just as a temporary basis. I don't want to become the city administrator. But I'm willing to do it on a temporary basis just to make everything flow within the city.
I'm good with that.
Eva?
I just had a question on that one, because I thought a little bit about this. Is the mayor, because the mayor's more like a kind of a legislative type position, and that's more administrative, is there anything in the charter that stops, you know, that says that we can't do that because it's administrative?
No, it's been done before. I think Rogers Wheatley's done it before, and it's not anything that hasn't happened before.
There's no problem, right, Andy?
We've got to do something.
Okay. Kevin?
And just on that point, all of the authorities that the city administrator has are authorities of the council that we're giving to him. So it's not at all inappropriate for a council member to, with the permission of the council, to exercise some of those authorities. I mean, there's stuff that needs to get done.
So then we're kind of overseeing what you're doing, in essence, kind of like.
Well, the CA works directly for us anyway, you know.
And you think, Andy, you think that it would be a good idea?
Yes, I think
to
it's
do
okay.
something like that?
I was just gonna say the same thing, that it's been done before, and I know that it might only be for a week. But if you're willing to do it, I would appreciate somebody helping out.
Okay.
So,
Is there a
I make
motion?
him
Or I would move to give the mayor temporary authorities normally assigned to the city administrator
without pay.
without pay.
I'll second it.
Kevin Benson moved and Tiffany Pruitt second to give the mayor authority to be the temporary city administrator until the next city administrator, temporary or permanent, is hired. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay?
Motion passes.
With that, I would like to give the mayor direction to review and to review all travel and training, visa, credit card bills, and dues and publications, and decide whether or not they're necessary or not right now, until we can get our budget, so we can figure out what's going on with our budget.
Could you run that by me again? I'm not following you. Reviewing travel,
Travel and training,
credit
dues and
cards,
publications, and credit cards.
just 4 things? Or is that 5?
Travel and training, dues and publications, visa, that's 5. And then I had a question, I guess I need to ask Andy Jordan, if we have things set by resolution, can they be modified, or do they have to have another resolution to be modified? Specifically, spending limits right now, if they're set by resolution, do they need to be reset by resolution, or can they be temporarily suspended?
The answer is that if you're going to change a resolution, it's best to do it by another resolution, but not legally required. You can't change an ordinance without another ordinance,
Right.
but you can change a resolution. A resolution is nothing more than a written motion. So, can you change a resolution by a motion? Yes, you can, as long as it's recorded. Not the best idea.
It'd be hard to track.
It's hard to track. It's hard to keep records. That's why I would advise not.
I mean, recent time you can, but.
But you can do it.
So,
I'm sorry, I don't think you're
so could we suspend all spending until further review by
motion?
by them, yeah,
Yes.
including spending limits, I mean,
You mean limits that have been adopted by a resolution?
yes,
Yeah.
but it's messy.
It's messy, hard to keep track of, and people will say, well, wait a minute, what was the motion really about?
Right,
What did she mean?
right.
Better to do it by resolution.
I'm sorry, Kevin.
I was just because it's going to be a temporary, a temporary basis or whatever.
What are we?
Just for a temporary period of time to establish where we're at as far as our budget and the money we have and so on and so forth, to temporarily suspend individuals' authority to spend money.
You could do that.
And not as a long-term thing, but as a short-term thing.
You could do that.
And I realize it's probably better to do it by resolution, but it would disappear at a set time, so there wouldn't be a tracking thing really. It would just be, we're temporarily suspending these authorities.
You can do that.
It's not gonna cause a big mess, I guess is what I'm trying
Well, I
to.
don't know if it's gonna cause a big mess, but I think that you can do it.
Okay.
I guess we'll find out.
Very nice.
We can find out.
Hi, Marion.
Hi, I just have a question. If you're saying to suspend spending authority that we have by resolution, does that mean we can't buy we can't buy anything? I can't approve anything? What is this all coming down to?
And what about paying bills that are the bills that have already been incurred?
I guess I need more clarification, because that basically stops us from doing anything.
Well, that's part of the discussion. We're not there yet. That's where we're trying to get to.
Yeah.
Is what exactly we're talking about.
Just a point of order. Where are we on the agenda?
We're
We're still on,
discussion of interim city administrator process.
So how does that have to do with spending authorities and suspending them?
It has to giving direction.
I was
of the
asking
temp-
George, but
anyway,
he's in charge of the agenda.
I would say it has to do with the process of what they're trying to determine what they want to tell the city administrator to do is part of the process. But I don't know. Because now I'm the interim city administrator.
That needs a vote, right? I think you need to have a motion.
We already did.
We did that.
Was there a vote?
Yes,
Yeah.
it was a
I'm sorry.
6 to 1.
Okay, I'm behind.
6 to 1.
So we voted on the interim city administrator process.
And
Typically, when we do that, we're done with that agenda item and we're moving on to the next. So I'm just kind of confused as to how this relates to the city administrator process.
I brought it up because we need an interim city administrator. We're still in that process. That was part of this, I just added it to part of this discussion, that's all.
But the discussion on what? The process has been voted on and we've made a decision.
And
I'll bring it up I'll bring it up in council comments.
Well, I would agree, though. I think that we've appointed George being an interim administrator. He should be able to go in and do all the things. He's going to ask questions. He's going to see what's going on. And he's going to act like the city administrator, which is any kind of items that are going to be up for spending that he deals with. I mean, whether budget or whatever, he's going to, that's part of being the city administrator. So he's going to be able to carry that on. If he has issues with that, he can bring that to us.
Is that correct? Will I be able, under that title, to do that?
I understand the council to have given you the same authority that the city administrator has in the charter. Okay. You have your council rules over there.
Okay, then Lance, you're right. So we'll go on to the next action item, or the next item, excuse me. The next item is under new business. And at this time, I need to call Ruby Mason because she wanted to listen in because this was about her. Hopefully she's still awake. Let's see. Hello, Ruby. This is George Fisher at Cascade Locks. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
Good. Sorry for such a late call. We've had a busy meeting tonight, but we're going to get started on talking about the resolution for the declaring the surplus property and authorizing the exchange of the real property between the city of Cascade Locks and Cascade Meadows Senior Apartments and the Columbia Cascade Housing Project. So at this time, is there any discussion, or Andy, do you have a presentation to make?
Well, the agreement has been revised. The only revision that I'm aware of since the last time you would have heard of it is the extension of the closing date would be February of 2012 to give everybody the time to carry out the 4 or 5 conditions which are the conditions of closing. And both parties, with the exception of the council, of course, has agreed that that is the best way to handle it. So I think these agreements are in good shape, ready to go, and the resolution is for your adoption.
When is the closing date?
The outside closing date would be February of 2012. In other words, 1 year. But it could close anytime within that year as soon as the conditions are fulfilled.
Okay. So first, we have on there a resolution declaring surplus property and authorizing the exchange of real property. So that...
Actually, I think, unless, correct me if I'm wrong, I think A and B are the same thing.
Okay, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I think all you have to do is adopt the resolution. The resolution includes approval of the agreements.
Okay.
Can I make the motion that we adopt resolution 1205, declaring surplus property and authorizing exchange of real property between, excuse me, the city of Cascade Locks, Cascade Meadow Senior Apartments, and Columbia Cascade Housing Project.
Second.
Okay. It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution 1225 declaring surplus property in the author.
I'm sorry, 1205.
1205 declaring surplus property and authorizing the exchange of real property between the City of Cascade Locks, Cascade Miles Senior Apartments, and the Columbia Cascade Housing Project. All those in favor?
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry, discussion. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Congratulations, Ruby.
Okay, Ruby, that's it.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, you have a good evening.
You too, bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Next on the agenda is approve the personal service contract with Peter Herring. Is there any council member that wishes to discuss or have a question about the contract with Peter Herring? Eva? No? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you raised your hand. Don?
Nothing has changed since our last meeting.
No.
And I make,
Well, wait,
Except for the 15 days.
the 15-day,
Wanted to change the pay, instead of out 30 days, being out 15 days.
Is that in here? Is that?
And there, so that he will he'll turn in his billing, and then we have up to 30 days to pay him, and he wants that changed up to 15 days, which actually fits, because he'll turn it into tourism will vote on it, then it'll be up to Mary Ann before the billing, when they pay.
is that all right with you, Mary Ann?
It just makes it a little tight if things don't go like that. That's why we have a net 30. It just makes it a little tight, and if these,
So yes or no?
that's my,
If there isn't a meeting or whatever, then
yeah, if there isn't,
Well, if there's not a meeting, it wouldn't even fit the 30 day though. So the only thing tight will be getting the minutes done.
yeah.
So that's the only thing that'll be tight, and we'll just have to make sure those get done. And the reason for this is because when he bills us, he's already 30 days out. He's worked a whole month. So he doesn't want to wait a whole other month to get paid.
We will do our best to make it work.
Question, Don, of course, I know he's not here, but can he not bill at 15 days?
Well, that's not the agreement we have with him.
Hmm.
We have a 30 day, by the month agreement.
Which would be easier, Mary Ann?
He could bill after 15 days, and then he would get paid 30 days later, and then he wouldn't be the entire 45 days
I
behind.
would prefer to work with the 15 days. I really would. It's less confusing, it's within our range, and we'll work with it. We'll make it work.
Okay, so to be paid in full within 15 days of receipt?
15 days of receiving the bill plus receiving, the key is getting the minutes from tourism.
Right.
That's the key. Because if they don't have a meeting until, like tonight, the 7th, I'm not gonna get those minutes probably until 14th. I'm already into my pay cycle of the bills. I mean, those are the things that we would have to work with.
Yeah.
Right.
Which would just require the secretary getting you the minutes.
So it's all gonna hinge on us working together and trying to get those minutes done so I can get it by the city administrator or the interim, whoever's here. And that's another issue. If there's no city administrator, and I'm not talking about now, I'm talking in the future, out on a conference or something like that, I don't have somebody here to approve it. I mean, those are things I have to work with. So if he's flexible, saying, okay, maybe it'll be 20 days.
And I think he is good with that. I don't think that's an issue. I think his issue was waiting a whole month to get
Yeah,
it.
paid.
well,
So can we put 20 days in then?
Wait a minute, what this agreement says, the way we wrote it, he's got 30 days, he must be paid within 30 days of the receipt of invoice. But it also provides that the city must notify him of any disputed amount within 15 days of receipt of the invoice, and the city will promptly pay the undisputed amount. So if there is an undisputed amount at the end of the 15 days, then the city is obligated to promptly make the payment, not wait until the end of the 30 days. I don't see what needs to be changed here, I guess.
I hadn't read the contract, I was just going by what.
I think the contract does probably what he wants.
Okay, then it's not an issue.
Putting you in a position of having to make payment within 15 days sounds like a problem to have, isn't it?
It could be.
It could
I'm not
be, and I
saying
don't
it
think you
would
want to
be.
put yourself in a breach situation.
It could be.
I think the way we've written it gives the city as much flexibility as it needs, but it also gives contractors a likelihood that he will get his money within 15 or so days.
After the city receives his invoice.
Yes, yes.
I have a couple of questions. Also in that payment, it says city manager, that should be city administrator.
Yeah.
So that is, and then, there's also that question, I think we had this question before, on the top of page 3, where it says the city and the city's officers, employees, and agents shall be named as additional insureds on each policy. So is that stating again that we have to be named on his insurance policy? Because we just had this discussion with Dave Griffin.
Yeah, you did, and if you recall that discussion, I told you that in some situations, that can be expensive and can be prohibitive for a small contractor. Larger contractors usually don't object to that. So the question is, how serious are you about that?
Now, is he a large contractor? No.
This is his insurance one, looks like he's compliant anyway.
Then it's not an issue. It's not an issue.
It's not that. Okay.
I don't know if it matters either, but on the last page of the contract, there was a word left out. Should say limited, when it describes his scope of work.
Including but not limited to.
The second paragraph down should say including but not limited to.
The second paragraph. The alien party and such shall be entitled to recover trees and trees.
No, it's on the scope of work, on this.
On the scope of work page.
Very,
Page 7.
Okay. Including but not limited to the following services.
Yeah, the word limited isn't in there now, it wasn't in there.
But not, oh, I see, all right, I got it.
It was just left out.
I got it. Okay.
Okay, so it's 10 o'clock. I'd entertain a motion to extend council so we can.
make a motion to extend till 10:30.
Second.
It's been moved by Tiffany Pruitt and seconded by Don Hay to extend the meeting until 10:30. All those or is there discussion? None? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Opposed.
Motion passes. Okay, you'll extend to 10:30.
So, and then I'll make a motion to approve the personal services agreement with Peter Herring with the noted corrections.
Second.
It's been moved by Tiffany Pruitt and seconded by Kevin Benson to approve the contract with Peter Herring. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is, and I don't think this is an issue now anymore, is to authorize mayor to sign a letter of understanding. I think I can do that now that I,
Actually, I think you do need.
Yeah, because it's a contract we're signing.
oh, really? Okay.
It's more than $2,500.
Yeah.
Oh, all right, I didn't know that. All right,
Yeah.
to sign a letter of understanding and a contract with Austin Rural and Cypress PE for fiscal year audit 2010, 2011.
I move to authorize the mayor to sign a letter of understanding and contract with Onstad, Brule, and Cyphers PC for fiscal year audit 2010, 2011.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is the approval payment of $8,399.29 to the USDA Forest Service for the 2011 special use permit. Is there any discussion?
I would move to approve the payment of $8,399.29 to USDA Forest Service for 2011 special use permits.
Second.
It's been moved by Kevin Benson and seconded by Tom Hamlet to approve the payment of $8,399.29 to the USDA Forest Service.
I do
for the-
have a discussion item.
Hmm?
I do have a discussion item.
Okay.
For service.
Yeah. I'd like a note sent with this bill to request that they list how many acres we're being charged for so that we can keep track of that every year so that that doesn't change. Because I don't see anywhere on here where it says how many acres we're being charged for.
Kevin?
And I recall us talking about this particular thing and something about a phase-in. I don't recall whether we were aware last, because it increased substantially last time. But it seems like there was some discussion during the presentation that it was gonna be phased in, so this increase isn't necessarily a surprise. And I know we're kind of just zipping through this, but this is just the lease that we pay the Forest Service for having our electrical lines on their property.
And we really can't say no.
Okay.
We could get that information.
Yeah. No, just for future purposes, I'd like to see it listed specifically what we're paying for.
Whose property it is?
Yeah.
Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item G, approval of $5,100 for the purchase of underground triplex conductors and wire. This is something that Tracy Huff needs to it's the general wire and conductors that he uses for doing services and other things, so it's basically just an inventory increase of what he needs.
Question?
Don?
Tracy's not here, but I was wondering the other day, what happened to the wire when we did South Bank? Did we sell that, or?
We did recycle it, the guys took it into the metal company where they recycle the metal, and yes, we did get payment for that.
I just was curious.
Okay.
Quite a bit of wire, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Actually, we need to make a motion.
Huh?
To make a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Make
We
a
probably do
motion,
need to
make a motion to approve the purchase of underground triplex conductor and wire for an amount of $5,100.
Second.
It's been moved by Tiffany Pruitt and seconded by Don Haight to approve $5,100 for the purchase of underground triplex conductors and wires. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Mayor and council comments? Any comments from the council? Tiffany? I mean, Eva, I'm sorry.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm gonna put myself on the line here just a little bit, and I say this with no facetiousness at all when I say this. When, you know, in the process of the whole vote and everything was going on, there was a lot of talk about conspiracy theories. And conspiracy theories was, where is the biggest conspiracy theory here with the new council? That the city administrator was gonna be gone, the public works person was gonna be gone, the mayor was gonna be put in as city administrator, and, you know, and that the spending freeze were gonna happen, and a lot of those things have happened, and so, but, I want to let people that said it know that I have faith in what we're doing here. I just think it needs to be said because there's a lot of cloud. We have to start somewhere, and so, maybe it's my kumbaya, but that's how I feel, and I'd like it to be out in the open. And I'd like to share that so that everybody on the council knows that too, that that is something that a lot of people are saying. So I just think it's relevant, because we have diverse groups here, and we're each taking care of our portion. And
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'd just like to say too that to be sure everybody understands, I don't think, I can only speak for myself, but I don't think anyone on the council wants to limit anything for our ambulance and fire service. But I think we all have to very clearly know what we can afford to do. I wish we could afford to hire 25 people and have them sitting down there. But we have to know what we can afford. We know what our debts are. Now we have to come up with a plan to find out what we can afford to do. And I resent the fact that people say that we don't want to take care of the city. We want to take care of the city, but we want to know how we can pay for it also. That's all I've got to say.
Tiffany?
I'm wondering, we really, before we hire an interim city administrator, we do need to come up with a budget on how to pay for it. So I'm wondering if you're going to call a special budget meeting to deal with the issue of how to pay for a city administrator, interim or...
Actually, what I thought one of the first things I would do is sit down with Mary Ann and go through the budget and go through with her and figure out where there's actual monies that could be used for the interim city administrator.
Okay.
So, is there?
Did you have that or that resolution 1128 or whatever? I did have a comment.
Okay.
And because we were talking about budget and so forth, and this, I think is pretty straightforward. Section 3, resolution number 1128, authorization to make expenditures or commit funds. The department supervisors will recognize that adopted budgets is an approved plan, but is not an instrument of authority to spend those budgeted funds. Authorization to expend funds requires the following steps. Receipt of the expected revenues that balance the budgeted funds to be expended. B, the maintenance of a positive cash balance in the fund. C, authorization in the form of a signed purchase order form from the city administrator for purchases up to $2,500, or authorization from the city council through the city administrator for purchases over $2,500. And in the years I've been involved in city government, I've never actually seen that. And that's always been kind of a gray area. Well, it's budgeted, so it's approved, or it's so on and so forth. This is pretty clear that just because something's budgeted, it's not an approved expenditure. And I think another one of the topics we discussed tonight is relevant to this as well. And that is B, the maintenance of a positive cash balance in the fund. So that means that you can't spend money out of a fund that has a negative cash balance. I mean, at least that's what that would say to me. So, there are some issues that definitely need to be addressed, I guess is really all that I'm getting at. And that just because something is budgeted according to this resolution is not authorization to spend money.
Okay, Lance, did you have anything you want to say?
Not tonight.
Okay. The only thing that I'm gonna say is that in respect to everything that's going on is, I want the community and everyone to know that the bottom line for me is, I just have the community's best interest in mind. And if that means financially, responsibility, I want us to be able to supply or to provide all the community services that we have or that we can afford to have, and follow within the charter rules and resolution rules. So with that being said, I don't have anything else to say. 11, staff notes.
You didn't ask me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tom.
I didn't have anything.
Here, slap my hand.
I'm good.
Mayor and council, there's a couple things I would like to say for the new councilors especially, and maybe for the mayor. There's a sample of the statement of economic interest in your packet. You'll be getting one mailed to your home address, probably sometime middle of March, last of March. Has to be filled out, turned in by April 15th. So if you have any questions about that, you can come in and ask me. And then also there's a Tri-County Hazardous Waste and Recycling Program quarterly meeting on March 2nd. That's something that Bernard always attended. Just was wondering if any counselor wanted to take that on, or would you prefer a staff member attend? I just think it's important that we keep it up so we can have programs here.
What time?
What is it?
It's 9 to 12, but the location isn't set yet, but probably in the Dalles.
Okay.
March 2nd.
I'll probably go to that if that's, unless a council member wants to go instead. But I'd be willing to go.
Okay.
What was your question?
What was for again? I'm sorry, I missed it.
What was it for?
It was the Tri-County Hazardous Waste and Recycling Program. They meet quarterly.
Okay, any other notes? No?
Well, I did remember there is some classes available, and I don't have the date with me, in Oregon City. This, I think it's around the 20-something.
February
Is that the
23rd is
budget?
the Oregon budget.
I've signed up for it, you were going to, weren't you?
Yeah, I have, myself and Sherelle will be going.
I know I'm going, I don't know if anybody else is interested, but I've signed up for it.
I sent it out in the packets about 4 weeks ago.
I received a reminder, so.
But I do have it if anybody's interested. I have the dates. There's 4 dates. Oregon City was the closest.
Okay. We'll go to executive session. There is no executive session tonight.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor? Motion carried.